Greer, my family has been repetitively denied. I understand Travis Bloom is an idiot. I understand that, fully understand that. He holds a good heart.
Fabricating fictitious government you ever seen.
My little brother used to run to mother and say, "Mom, BB hit me." BB was my sister. He used to say, "BB hit me." Mom would say, "Well, my lovely young man, where are the marks to prove such?" Well, my mom, show me the marks. He could not show any marks. Mother would say, "I can't tell where the marks are." True story.
And the evidence is going to show that law enforcement tampered with evidence to meet their such high burden of proof.
While I'm waiting for this, did you, whether it's true or not, believe that Mr. Randolph had slept with your wife?
I wouldn't care.
You wouldn't have cared?
No.
Did you believe he had slept with your wife?
No.
Did you believe he slept with your mother-in-law?
Probably did. Everybody has.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
Said
Everybody has.
Oh, okay.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Whatever you are, whoever you are, and what, if any, you might be. Did I see Aaron Spencer won the primary? No, I did not, and I can't find any updates on it either because I was looking around because there was some different elections that I kind of had an eye on, but I didn't see any updates so far. So maybe I just don't look the right places. But good for him. Good for him if he did. No, I'm just trying to see if I can find it now. It doesn't really pop. No. Doesn't come up when I goggle it. So we'll try and look again later. Maybe we will find it and see if it's true, because that would be amazing. Because he's another guy who has been wrongfully, well, he did what any dad would do. So that would be amazing if he won it. Okay. Well, it doesn't pop when I Google it, so maybe it's because I'm not local or my algorithm is different or something like that. But good thing. And yeah. Now we just have to wait and see in the general election, because we still don't know when he's going to get his trial date. And I still hope that this case will just be thrown out. He defeated the incumbent Sheriff John Staley and another candidate, David Buford, in a highly publicized race. Wait a waiter. It's because I'm wearing yellow. That's the color of the sun. Do put the link in Discord General. Well, Stu does a lot of things. Bum, 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 bum. Forgive me my language here, but holy shit. Aaron Spencer for Lower County Sheriff just pulled out the win of the century, a national story, an underdog being persecuted by the county for defending his child's win sheriff primary. Let freaking go, baby. Perhaps the biggest national election story right here in Arkansas, and it literally happened. That's great. That is great. That is great. Thank you, Sue, for sharing that in the Twitch thread. And I took the bauble down as well. I have been busy this morning. Good morning, Jemima. But as said yesterday, because they are taking a day off today in court, let's watch the lead detective's testimony that we missed the other day. We, of course, know that the defense theory is he had a cough. He didn't have a bad divorce the first time. There was lights on at the house, and his brother-in-law hates him. That was the defense. Somewhere. I think it's behind the Harry Potter. So I do still have it. But let's watch it and find out what, if anything, the lead detective has to say. Because, again, the defense was he had a cough, he didn't have a bad divorce, his brother-in-law hates him, and lights were on at his house. That was the three very important points that the defense chose to put on. So maybe they destroyed this detective on cross-examination. That could be one thing. And this starts a bit abruptly. I couldn't find any other feed that was longer than this, so I hope it is the entire testimony.
On April 26, 2021, Kevin Greca goes out to the Munger property, right?
Yes.
And then he searches the Munger home.
He walked through the home with Mr. Warner. Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you said walk through, is that different in your mind than search?
Yes.
How so?
If I were searching a house, I'm going to open all the drawers. I'm going to look under the bed. I'm going to go in every cabinet. Versus a walkthrough is a more preliminary walk through the house. So the two, and I'm not trying to split hairs, but there is a difference in my mind.
American
so when he's
2X,
walking
yes.
through the house, though, while he is not opening up necessarily every cabinet, he is looking for things of potential evidentiary value, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And he also has a body camera on when he's doing it?
Yes.
So that other people can see what he's doing?
That's correct.
On that day, he also interviewed Mr. Warner?
Yes.
And he also interviewed some other people that day as well?
Yes.
And to be clear, you would agree with me, Mr. Warner didn't have to speak with Detective Greca, correct?
No, he did not.
But he chose to do so, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Is this only the defense part? Because it sounds like it's the defense cross-examining him. But this is what comes up on Lawn and Crim. I'm just going to double check. I've Googled it a lot of times today, but just sounds like it's the defense. But I can't tell them apart. The defense and the prosecutor. No, this is what Lawn and Crim has and day 10, so it must be this.
So then on April 27th, 2021, I think we've established there were two searches of the property. The one earlier in the day was the consent search that was cut short, and then the evening one was via a search warrant. Would you agree?
Yes, on 427. Yes, ma'am.
427. I apologize. Did I miss the data?
No, I'm just making sure I'm with you. Yep.
Okay. For April 27th, 2021. And on that date, if we combine both those searches, land was searched as well as buildings.
Yes.
And then we know that they had both cadaver and tracking dogs there.
Yes.
And drones.
That's correct.
Because we've seen some of that footage. Again, Mr. Warner spoke to the police that day, correct?
Yes.
Now, when he changed his mind with Detective Greca, you've listened to that audio and video, correct?
Yes.
And he indicated that he, at that point, thought Ms. Warner was at her son Zach's house and she would be returning and he needed to get back to farming. That's what he said.
A loose paraphrasing, but yes, ma'am.
Sure.
That's the gist of what he said. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's not a direct quote, but
Yeah, You've been here for a while. I'm really busy. I got to get back to work. You guys got to go, basically.
And then there was another search on April 28th, 2021 of an additional property owned by Mr. Warner, correct? That's Cedar Point.
Yes.
And that was a consent search?
I'm not as familiar. I'm going to take you for your word on the date. I know that they eventually did a search there.
Do you want to see a report that will indicate the date?
I'm not arguing with you. If you want me to look at it, I will, but I'm just.
No, that's.
I know they definitely searched it that week. I'm just not sure on the date. Yeah.
That's great. And if at any point in time, it's a lot.
No, this is the lead detective, so the defense wouldn't go first because this would be the state's last witness.
Of reports. If you want to see it, feel free. So then on April 29th, 2021, there's another consent search of the Munger Road property, correct?
But this is the problem. The defense and the state sounds almost identical. And there is no other videos from Law and Crime of day 10 than this. But it just started abruptly, and I have a hard time telling if it's one or the other. And I can't find anywhere we can see it. So we'll just see what's in there.
Yes.
And that had canines and drones.
I'm not positive on the drones, but I know there's a canine there. Yeah.
And also.
No, this is Greer. This is the lead detective. This one. You go to VTOL. Because I was looking at VTOL as well, and they have the same video, I'm pretty sure. Dee Warner trial, day 10. Live, day 12.
That's when the.
Maybe this is different.
Truth under penalty.
So I'm not going to have you do that again. You've already stated your name and spelled it for the record, so I'm not going to have you do that again. We kind of talked a little bit briefly last week about some of the things you did. Some of this may overlap. I'll try not to do that too much. You discussed taking the investigation over in August of 2022. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
All right. And prior to that, you were part of a task force?
Yes.
When you became involved in this case, did you know?
Greer, if you're talking about the old guy who was the old lead detective, we had him the day before this one. This is the state's last witness. Now I think we're getting in from the beginning. Sorry, everyone. We started from the beginning. Law and Crime didn't have the part where the state was questioning him.
Dee Warner?
No.
Did you know Dale Warner?
No.
Did you know anybody involved with the case as far as citizens went?
No.
In approximately April or May of 2022, did you assist the Sheriff's Department in doing a search warrant for Munger Road property?
Yes, we returned to the farm for a search warrant at the approximate time.
Do you recall what that search warrant was for?
Yes, that search warrant was primarily focusing on the seizure and collection of electronic devices, phones, tablets, and computers.
Did you seize any items that day?
Yes, we seized approximately 100 computers, phones, and tablets from the residents.
At this point, had you ever recovered the phone that Dee Warner possessed on April 24th, 25th, 2021?
No.
What specific electronic items that you seized that day became important during this investigation?
The primary intention of serving that search warrant was to collect Dale Warner's iPad and iPhone. In addition, we had learned that Dale Warner had purchased a new iPhone after Dee's disappearance and put her phone number on it for purposes of the business. And that particular item was of particular interest to me also.
When you say put her phone number on it, what does that mean? How do you do that?
Essentially, he purchased a new iPhone that had never been used before by then, imported her information from the iCloud, and put her phone number on it from Verizon.
You indicated you Dale's iPad was of particular interest. Was that one of the items that you did seize?
That's correct.
And you indicated Dale's phone. How many phones did you seize of Dale Warner's?
I can think of at least 2 phones that we seized, his current phone at that time, and at least 1 that he had used prior. There may be additional prior ones, but I can't recall.
Okay. Did you recover the item with Dee's iCloud on it, the electronic device with Dee's iCloud on it?
Not initially, no, ma'am.
Okay. What do you mean not initially?
That was, for lack of a better term, it's a little bit uncomfortable when you're assisting another police agency because they're in charge still, but you're making recommendation as to what should happen. So in this instance, the sheriff's department's in charge, but I'm kind of there assisting. And I made contact with Mr. Warner near the dining room table, and we have a series of devices that we're collecting and seizing from the house. And I specifically asked him about this cell phone. I want the cell phone that has Dee's phone number on it, to which he gestures towards the table and indicates that we already have it. So the uncomfortable part is I'm not in charge and really in a position to challenge him on this to confirm. So I took him at his word at that time. But we later discovered that that was not the case.
How did you discover that?
I received a phone call. I can't remember if it was that same day or the next day. And it was Dale Warner calling to inquire about him being returned his iPad and iPhone that we had previously seized. But he was calling me from Dee's phone number.
Okay. And how long after you seized those electronic items did he call you?
I can't recall if it's the same day or the next day, but it was shortly thereafter.
Okay. And you indicated the number that came up was the number for Dee Warner?
That's correct.
All right. What'd you do?
From there, I contacted my partner, Detective Sergeant Singleton. We returned to the Munger residence and made contact with Dale, inquiring as to that phone again.
And did you get the phone at that time?
Eventually, yes.
What do you mean eventually?
Upon making contact with Dale Warner and informing again that we needed to collect that device, he did not immediately cooperate and initially refused to do so.
Okay. But you said eventually, so you eventually left with that phone with her iCloud information on it?
That's correct.
What did you do with those electronic items once you recovered them?
Those devices were sent to what's called our CCU, or Computer Crimes Unit.
What's the purpose of that?
A witness from that unit testified last week. Essentially, they specialize in extracting information off of electronic devices and putting it in a format that allows detectives like myself to review.
Okay. And so did they put that in a case and then do they always send it to you?
It varies on depending on the investigator, but the majority of detectives in my department would obtain that information from the analysts that work there, and they themselves would review it. And there might be some back and forth with those analysts to ensure that they're understanding what's been given to them.
Okay. And when you send those to the lab, what do you get in return? What does the lab give you back?
They typically provide you with a thumb drive or a hard drive, depending on how large the device is, how much memory you need. And from that, you're provided a computer program that allows you to select different pieces of information that you want to view on the phone, text messages, calendar, emails, photographs, etc. So essentially, the computer program organizes things in this program similar to how you would find them on the actual phone.
Did you review any of those portable cases when you were conducting your investigation in this case?
Yes.
All right. Which ones?
I reviewed every portable case that was provided to me. There's, I couldn't tell you how many we had. There was a lot.
In October of 2022, did you execute a search warrant for OnStar?
Yes.
Okay. Why?
I knew from reviewing Dale Warner's cell phone from his portable case that the sheriff's department had completed that at approximately 7:08 a.m. on 4/25 that he had accessed the OnStar application. And I was inquiring to OnStar as to whether or not they could tell me what he did from his phone in relation to that car. That was a particular interest to me.
Okay. And so did you get those records back?
Yes, there was some back and forth with OnStar, but eventually we get those records after some time.
Did you have those records back when you interviewed the defendant on December 20th, 2022?
No, we received them from OnStar after that interview.
May 23rd, 2023, did you interview Rob Brisky as part of this investigation?
Yes.
And why did you do that?
Through the investigation, we had good reason to believe that Dee Warner was involved in an extramarital affair with Rob Brisky. So making contact with him and interviewing him about his relationship with her and where he was during the time of her disappearance was of particular interest to us.
Did the information you have about the affair, was that a current affair?
No, we had no reason to believe it was going on at the time of her disappearance. And we learned that it had ended months prior. The most recent could have been was months prior.
As a result of your conversation with Rob Brisky, what did you do?
I obtained a search warrant for Delta Airlines and confirmed that Mr. Brisky had purchased a ticket to Florida and I also obtained some credit card records to see that he had regular and consistent charges in the state of Florida at the time of Dee Warner's disappearance. I also spoke to another individual that said that she was with him the whole time in Florida.
From the time you get involved in April or May of 2022, throughout the course of the investigation, what's your focus?
Throughout my time in this investigation, it has been focused on finding Dee Warner. So that could be in a number of different ways. If she's alive and well somewhere, obviously we want to find her. If she's not alive, we still want to locate her. So essentially discovering what happened to her, what caused her disappearance, and where she physically was.
When you're looking for Dee Warner, describe the person you're looking for.
Dee Warner is approximately 5'3", weighs approximately 140 pounds, with blonde hair.
Throughout the course of your career, have you investigated suicides?
Yes.
Approximately how many?
In the multiples of tens, I wouldn't quite say 100, but numerous.
Okay. What about natural deaths?
Yes, probably a similar figure.
Homicides?
A little bit less, but a similar figure, yes, ma'am.
When you start doing these things to follow up, did you follow up on any of the defendant's statements regarding proof of life?
Yes.
Okay. What statements did you follow up on?
There were several things Dale Warner stated that we investigated. The one that we spent the most amount of time on was the statement that she had taken some money from the business and had disappeared on her own means and was living somewhere off of that money. We put a lot of time and resources into that portion of the investigation.
Hey, Rian.
Did you contact anybody for assistance as part of that?
Yes.
And who did you contact?
I was put in touch with an agent with the Secret Service. His name is Ryan Heathouse. He specializes in locating missing persons through what we would refer to as a search for life, as well as working with local state analysts for similar type of searches.
Okay. And doing those searches, did you find anything to lead you to Mexico or Jamaica or anywhere else outside of Michigan?
No.
What else did you investigate?
As far as Mr. Warner's statements?
Correct.
Another statement he had made was that Dee Warner had a prescription drug problem, and perhaps that had something to do with her disappearance.
What did you do to investigate that?
There were several things that I did to look into that matter specifically. One, I did search warrants and reviewed her Blue Cross Blue Shield usage, which is what her insurance coverage for her prescriptions, as well as her CVS records, where she primarily filled those prescriptions. Separately, I reviewed records from something that's called MAPS. MAPS is a database that's used by healthcare providers and pharmacists to ensure that people aren't going to multiple doctors to get the same type of drug. It's something to help prevent people from abusing prescription drug programs. You can't go to Dr. A, B, and C and get oxycodone or Vicodin from each of them.
Okay, and where did your investigation with the pills lead you?
I found nothing that would indicate any signs of abuse of any scheduled narcotics.
Thank you, Marissa, for letting me go back and watch this, because they actually did. They're just going through the checklist of everything he made up about this woman and just saying, nope, 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 nope. All of his lies have no evidence based on them.
What other statements of Dale Warner's did you follow up on?
We put a lot of time and investigation into the things that he did on the morning of 4/25.
Okay. I'm going to go back just a little bit. Did you investigate the statements about a second phone?
Yes.
All right. What did you do to investigate a second phone?
Dale Warner's statements that Dee may have had a secret phone was of particular interest to us, because as her primary phone showed no communications with anyone that would lead us to believe that she summoned someone to come and get her on 4/25/21. So discovering if this other phone existed and if she could have possessed.
That still means it in Danish.
It was of particular interest to us. So
that's a lot of tits.
several search warrants, I did several things to try to obtain this information. There is something called a Google geofence. A geofence is essentially where, as a detective, I can draw an imaginary box over any location, and I can tell Google, I want you to tell me any device that you have connected inside of this box. In order for Google to have a record of that, you'd have to be operating a Google application on your phone or on your tablet, whatever that device is, and be consenting to that type of data transmission. That's in no means foolproof. For instance, if I were to put one over the courthouse right now, I probably would not get everyone's cell phone that's in this building currently. But through that search warrant, I was not able to discover any device that could be the alleged secret phone.
What other search warrants did you do to look for that second phone?
I also did a search warrant for something that is called FOG. FOG is more commonly known as advertiser ID. So all of us.
He came in on this case in 2023, right? How can he do a geofence? Because in Massachusetts, you can't do a geofence if you don't do it within an hour of the time. Well, maybe 15 minutes after the alleged incident. So how the hell could he do a geofence this far out? Everyone relax. Stop the searches. Sue has been found. Now we just need side eyes, and the road to hell has begun.
That have a cell phone, we essentially have been given an advertiser ID number. This is a very long number that basically keeps your identity a secret, but your phone is collecting information about where you go, the websites you go to, where you travel, and advertisers buy this information so you can be targeted with specific ads. So similar to a geofence, I can draw a box over a specific area to see if I can discover this unknown device. That is less reliable than Google, but that is something we employed here, and we also did not discover a phone through those means.
Did you do anything else to look for this second phone?
Yes, because I had access to Dee Warner's cloud information, her iCloud, I had a volume of her emails and other contacts, and I searched those extensively to see if there was any communication she had where she signed up for another device or had purchased another phone, and I was unable to find any communications that led me to believe that. Additionally, I also learned that through her extramarital affair, she used her primary phone number for that communication with that person.
Why was that important to your investigation?
In my experience, the assertion that somebody may have a secret phone could be indicative of someone having an extramarital affair. So for someone to have an extramarital affair, but be utilizing their everyday phone number that everyone else would have, would indicate that that secret phone is less likely to exist.
During any of the interviews with Dale, did he mention that Dee was sneaking out in the middle of the night?
No.
Okay. And if you're investigating a missing person, is that important information to know?
Absolutely. That would be an important piece of what I would call someone's pattern of life.
Last week, we saw items that were seized by the FBI, and in the exhibits 179 through 183, exhibit 192 and 193, which were the pink planner, the loose sheets, and the black planner. He indicated in there on March 21st, 2021, that Dee Warner had snuck out in the middle of the night, correct?
Yes.
All right. Same thing on March 23rd, 2021, correct?
Yes.
And both of those had a time frame of after 2 o'clock in the morning, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And did you do anything to look into that claim?
Yes. As viewing that in Mr. Warner's notes, I did a comparison for the usage of the OnStar application and saw that he did not check her location at those times, which I found to be interesting.
I'm going to show you people's 224, which is the OnStar record, SRT 110, page 78. Is that the record that you're referring to that you looked at?
That's correct.
Again, in the notes from the FBI, the pages that were seized from Dale Warner in October of 21, the defendant has March 21st, 2021 in those notes after she snuck out, drug dealer, question mark. Has defendant ever mentioned anything about a drug dealer to you?
No.
Okay.
Well, yes, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, to you or during the course of the investigation, or?
Well, I guess I might maybe paraphrasing. He didn't use the term drug dealer. I think he used the term drug cartel.
Okay.
Oh my.
And when was that mentioned?
You know you have a problem if you don't have a drug dealer, but you have a drug cartel.
That was in the interview with me in December.
Okay, explain what you mean.
When detailing what he believed happened to Dee, his wife Dee Warner, he stated that he believed that she escaped to Florida or somewhere near the border and had escaped on a secret $10 or $20 boat ride and was living in Mexico or Jamaica with the drug cartel.
Anything else about any local drug dealers in Michigan?
Not that I recall, no ma'am.
During any of Dale Warner's interviews, did he discuss Dee having nightmares or talking in her sleep?
No.
Did the defendant ever mention during the whole course of the investigation that Dee was scared to be by herself?
No.
Did he ever mention that she would run to the window or door anytime a car went by or pulled in?
No.
Did he ever mention that Dee always said someone was watching The Office on the Hill on Carson?
No.
Again, all of these things being in his loose leaf pages, his notebooks and journals, do you think that would be something important to relay to an investigator investigating his missing wife?
Objection, speculation.
I'll withdraw the question.
All right.
Dee ever mention anything? Did the defendant ever mention anything to you about Dee being paranoid?
Yes.
Okay, and what was that?
He made a statement during one of his interviews that when asked about tracking the Hummer, using the device in the Hummer, that Dee was just paranoid.
Did he mention he was not in fact tracking her?
That's correct. That was a statement about that device.
The black book that the FBI last week testified to, that was the text thread between Zach and Dee, Exhibit 191. Do you recall that item?
Yes.
Did you look into that item? Did you read those?
Yes. I observed that in one of Dale Warner's devices. I can't remember if it was his iPad or his iPhone. I can't recall.
Okay. And when did you observe that item in the phone?
When did I observe it? Or
I apologize. Let me reword that. When did you observe that item in his Dale Warner's device? You didn't say phone. I said that. I'm sorry.
the date that I saw it, or the date that it was in the phone?
The date that it was in the phone first.
It was placed on the device in December of 19.
Detective Singleton testified that at some point you both came up with a theory about welding. Can you describe that to me?
Yes, there was a video clip of Dale Warner in what we refer to as the old shop, or building number 1, in which he's looking for something near welding equipment, and as a car drives by, he moves to the side behind a truck and ducks down to see who it is.
Okay, so is there anything else that came to your mind when you're thinking of this welding theory?
Specifically with the date and time that it happened, we were just suspicious of what he would be doing with welding equipment on that particular day, the day that his wife was missing.
Okay. Did you, at this point, when you come up with the welding theory, do you remember when that was?
We first started assisting in March or April of 22, and we took over full time beginning of August of 22. It was sometime in between there, but I don't recall specifically.
Were you still assisting the sheriff's department at the time?
That's correct.
Did you notify, well, who was the officer in charge of the case at that time?
Kevin Greca.
Did you notify Kevin Greca that you believed that welding was involved?
No.
Why not?
Kind of going back to what I described as kind of the awkwardness when I'm at the dining table with Mr. Warner. It's not my investigation. I'm just making recommendations on what I've seen from their investigation. So I wasn't entirely sure it would be appropriate for me to air that type of opinion. And separately, we were very conscious of the fact that somehow information was being leaked from the sheriff's department. So I wasn't totally sure who I could trust there, to be honest with you.
When you say information is being leaked from the sheriff's department, do you know if it was from the sheriff's department, or do you just know it was law enforcement?
I know it was law enforcement.
Okay. Did you ever ask the defendant about welding during your December 20th, 22 interview?
No.
Why not?
One, we still didn't have any reason to, it wasn't this aha moment as my partner described it. It was just something that was peculiar. And in every homicide investigation I've worked, there are certain facts that only the culprit would know about. And so you want to keep those pieces of information very close to your chest, because once you say it, then everybody could know it. So welding specifically, if it was involved, that wasn't something we were comfortable with confronting Mr. Warner with, based on the limited information we had at the time.
After you interview the defendant in December of 22, do you ultimately end up doing some large-scale searches?
Yes, in May of 2023.
Okay. And again, approximately how many acres did you search?
I believe it was over 3,000 acres, but I don't have an exact number.
What land did you search? Whose land?
We primarily searched land that was owned by Dee or Dale Warner, and or land that they had contracted to do farming with at the time of her disappearance in 2021.
When you're doing these searches, how are you doing them procedurally?
We separated the areas into what I would call primary and secondary areas. So the primary areas were places that we had information to believe that Dee could have went there for some reason at that particular time, around that time, or that Dale Warner had gone to those areas at that particular time. The secondary areas were the remaining pieces of property that were on that list. And the intention here is, through my time of investigating natural deaths and even suicides, when people are going to commit suicide, they typically go to some place that's comfortable for them. So in our mind, we wanted to make sure that we went to all of these properties to ensure that she didn't come to stop living on one of these pieces of property and was just laying there still undiscovered.
When you're doing these searches for the approximately 3,000 acres, did you go by yourself?
No, this was an operation, a detail that had 130 Michigan State Police personnel involved.
Did you use any equipment to aid in the searches?
Yes, depending on the specific parcels, we use ground penetrating radar, metal detection, some aviation, FLIR devices. We did some probing with cadaver searches, we did article searches, and eventually did some excavation in selected areas.
Ground penetrating radar, what's that?
Ground penetrating radar is a device that essentially sends signals through the ground and can detect if there's any disturbances beneath the top layer of surface. So for instance, if I were to dig a hole and bury a big rock and then put dirt back on top of it, that would show up as an anomaly using ground penetrating radar, which would be a sign of disturbance beneath the earth.
And I believe you also said FLIR.
That's correct.
What is that?
FLIR is a device that essentially detects the difference between temperatures of two different objects. So for instance, on a cold winter day, if I were to look at your house.
Yes, so we did mention that he won his runoff or his primary based on your the thing you shared in Discord, because it's not popping when I'm goggling it. So thank you, Sue. I'll be right back. I need to go shower after saying that. I feel dirty. I have an incredible amount of space to hide a body. I can't even imagine 3,000 acres. No, and he apparently chose the most obvious hiding spot in a spray barn inside a tank, and they didn't look for it.
Through a FLIR camera, the ground, the sky, parts of the house would appear very dark, but the windows and doors would look a little bit brighter because there's probably heat coming through those areas. So it's essentially going to highlight a difference in temperature between two objects.
And I believe you said article searches. Can you explain what that means?
Yes, so you heard some testimony from Trooper Jack Taff, who was a canine handler. We deployed cadaver dogs, but also normal search dogs for article searches because we were looking for several items that were missing with Dee Warner.
What items were you looking for?
She was known to be missing with her purse, her phone, her passport, her driver's license, what is referred to as her go bag, which had some makeup and hair products in it.
And then you indicated metal detection.
Correct.
What were you using?
We were using numerous different handheld metal detection devices on those searches.
Okay. Why?
We were still operating the assumption that she could be welded inside of something and that it could be buried.
And now you're thinking buried. Now you added the additional buried. Why do you think she's buried at this point?
Aside from the copious amounts of land that Mr. Warner had available to him, he also had numerous pieces of heavy machinery. It would be easy to dig a hole and bury something. Additionally, I had discovered a Google query on his phone. I'm sorry, on his iPad.
On his iPad. Okay. And why did that Google query make you think that it was underground?
The specific thing that was queried through Google on his iPad was, I'm slightly paraphrasing, but what to do with a 1,000-gallon IP tank. So the information I had in front of me from that portable case we discussed earlier is it shows me specifically what was searched. And in this instance, I also had a link to what was eventually clicked on. When I clicked on that link and viewed the video, it was essentially instructions showing you how to bury a tank of that size.
I believe you indicated that you, as part of these searches, you went to areas where you knew the defendant was on the morning of April 25th, 2021.
That's correct.
And how do you know that? How do you know where he was?
Aside from the statements that he provided, we also got information from John Deere through a search warrant. The particular device he was operating that morning through John Deere, they collect geographical information every 30 minutes. So if you were to start this specific sprayer at 7:58 a.m. and turn it off at 9:02 a.m., you're going to have a GPS coordinate at 8, 8:30, and 9.
Based on the records that you reviewed for John Deere, where did you search?
The priority areas based upon that, there was a property just south of the residence, what's been referred to as Leroy Sealers, where he did some spraying for a short time, and also a property in Onstead and a property in Brooklyn.
Describe, is this all farmland that you're searching?
The vast majority.
No and yes. I make fun of a lot of people from the south of the Americas. I have this very accurate Southern accent. Stu has told me it's the most Southern accent she has ever heard. And she's from the back hollers of the Appalachians. So everything she says regarding South and hillbillyism is 100% accurate. So I do make fun of people.
majority of it. Some of these plots of farmland would have a lining of trees on one perimeter, or I can think of one particular area that has like a cell phone tower in the middle, and underneath it are big boulders piled up underneath. But the majority of this land is tillable farmland.
Were there any bodies of water on the land you were searching?
Yes.
Okay. What types of bodies of water?
These pieces of property had little runoff creeks, streams, ponds, bogs. There were a few properties that were maybe not a part of this search, but almost as big as a small lake.
And you indicated that that was in the first week of May 2023.
That's correct.
And I believe Detective Singleton testified about the searches in May of 2023. Is that the same search that he testified to?
That's correct.
Right. And so May 4th, Detective Singleton indicated that you guys went to the Paragon Road property on the north side of the road. Do you recall?
Yes.
Did you ever search the south side of the road on Paragon?
No. Well, when we executed that search warrant to excavate the north side of the road, I'm near certain I stepped foot on the south side of the property and looked around, but simply just because we were there and it was the same parcel. But we did not do an extensive search at that time.
And at the time that you go to the Paragon Road property, are you still operating under the assumption that she is underground somewhere?
That's correct.
In January of 2024, did you return to the Munger Road property to do some type of reenactment?
Yes.
For what?
Specifically at that time, I wanted to see what you could do specifically with the front end loader, or also known as a JCB. Those two things are the same. If you were to pull it to that back door. Additionally, we did some experimentation with Dale's commercial sprayer that he was driving that morning. That's separate. We did some experimentation with a separate sprayer of similar nature somewhere else.
Okay. I'm going to show you People's Exhibit 122. Was that part of your January 2024 reenactment?
Yes. So that is the exact JCB that Dale owned on 4/25/21.
And why is it located here?
That is where Dale Warner indicated that he parked it when he returned to the house.
That's a great way to hide you putting a body in the scoop at the front, because that hides everything that goes on inside the door. He's not that dumb.
People's 123. What's that?
That is the same position it was in the previous photo, but in this instance, I took the photo from the side to see the bucket. I should note the bucket was capable of getting all the way up to the door, but our operator was a little worried about leaving some damage behind, so we just got it here instead.
You also indicated you did some kind of reenactment with a John Deere sprayer.
Yes.
Okay. And why did you do that?
For two different reasons. Are you referring to when we used a sprayer that was not Dale Warner specifically, or specifically his sprayer?
You mentioned it.
I located someone totally unrelated to this case that had the exact same commercial sprayer that Mr. Warner did. And I was curious to know if you could travel the distance necessary and spray the ground necessary in return in the time frame that he left initially on that morning. So essentially, he leaves the first time, states he goes to Leroy Sealers, sprays 10 to 12 acres roughly, and comes back. I was curious to know if you could do that exact thing in that time frame.
Okay. What'd you find?
We found that was possible and within the allotted time necessary to do so.
Okay. At some point in time, you start looking into tanks. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And approximately when is that?
That is June of 24.
Okay. And what specifically were you looking for when you're looking for tanks?
At that time, I felt as though we had exhausted the type of searching that we could do. So to revisit this welding theory, I decided to try and discover what metal objects were on the farm at the time of 4/25/21 that could have disappeared and somebody would not notice. So in other words, if she was put inside of something metal and welded, what could have been used that people wouldn't have reported, hey, wait a minute, this is missing now, which ultimately led me to the search for anhydrous ammonia tanks.
So at this point, have you given up looking underground and now shifted to above ground?
I wouldn't say that we had given up on that, but we had done so much searching beneath ground that aside from a particular tip coming in or someone discovering a new piece of information, those would be the only two things that would move us to do any more digging, if that makes sense.
Okay. As you're searching, when you decide to search for anhydrous tanks, was there anything you had to do to prepare to do that?
Yes.
What did you have to do?
I had a very primitive understanding of what anhydrous ammonia was. The extent of my knowledge on it was simply from my time in the police academy when they show you how dangerous it can be if you inhale it, and it can cause death. So as a road trooper, they want you to be aware of that in case you encounter a crash and that gas is involved. So knowing that, I had to find a way, if I were to find a tank and it had some of that gas in it, I had to find a way to empty that gas so I could search the inside of it. As these tanks are manufactured to not have an opening to prevent you from seeing in, that was also another challenge. So the first several weeks of this endeavor was to discover how I would empty a tank if it was full of gas and how I would ultimately see inside of it.
Okay. How did you do that research?
The first person I contacted was a sergeant from our motor carrier division. They handle the commercial trucking enforcement part of our department, and they have more hazmat training than a normal trooper does. And after consulting with him, I eventually made contact with our emergency management division, who we have a coordinator by district that helps coordinate if there's a chemical spill, and I was able to get some information from him also.
Did you contact anybody else for additional information?
Yes. Once I kind of had a plan for what I would do to empty the tank and look inside of it, I also contacted Greg Hardy.
Okay. What was the purpose of that?
Greg Hardy is Dee Warner's older brother. He owns a farm down the road, also has a large farming operation, and he had great firsthand knowledge of how that farm operated, the Warner farm. And he ultimately gave me some advice on where or who to contact to locate Dale Warner's tanks.
All right. And who was the person that you contacted to help you locate some of Dale Warner's tanks?
I can't recall the individual's name, but essentially I came to learn that at some point around that time, he had rented numerous tanks from Dale Warner. So the information provided to me was that this person rented a bunch of tanks and kind of had free reign of a dozen or so of Dale Warner's tanks.
Okay. And based on the information you got from that person, did you do additional search warrants?
Yes. Based on talking with that individual, we did a search warrant again at Paragon Road on the south side across from where we excavated, and also conducted a consent search for a property on Carson Highway just east of the farm across the street.
And I believe you already testified that you found tank 34 in that Paragon property barn. Is that accurate?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. And you took that to the bridge and had it x-rayed?
Yes.
All right. Where'd you take it after that?
From the Ambassador Bridge, I took it to the Michigan State Police Northville Laboratory.
For what?
Ultimately, at the time, I was trying to find a place I could store it, which is a different story, but eventually they agreed to process the exterior of the tank for fingerprints.
Okay. When you say they, are you talking about the lab personnel?
That's correct.
All right. Where'd you take it after that?
From there, it was escorted to the Michigan State Police Monroe Post for secure storage until we could, at this point, it's 7 or 8 p.m., so we weren't unable to get into the feat of opening the tank. So we stored it overnight there until we could start the next morning.
You arrived the next morning. Who do you bring back with you so that you can open this tank?
Although I had scaled the tank the previous day to confirm the weight and give me an indication if it was empty, and I had x-rayed it, which also showed there was no gas in it, otherwise the x-ray would have been solid, I still wanted to make one more confirmation that the tank didn't have any gas in it. So we contacted someone that works in that field locally, an independent contractor, who came to the post to aid us in an evaluation.
Okay. And did he observe that tank?
Yes.
What did he do to determine if it was empty?
He gets out of his truck, walks over and knocks on it, and makes a statement like, "Oh, it's empty," and grabs a wrench and takes off one of the valves on top, and then sticks his face up to it and inhales and says, "It's empty."
Okay. Who else is present?
At that time, I was with him and several other state police personnel.
Did you have the fire department there?
Not just yet. They arrived a little while later.
And why'd you have them there?
I asked the fire department to come for a couple different reasons. For one, I had to consult with a private contractor who ultimately came and helped us cut open the tank. This is someone that works for a private industry. So when you're operating heavy machinery like that, especially on state land, the state police takes on some liability. So I wanted the fire department there for medical reasons. But additionally,
I think you need more coffee, then you can follow along. Not that fast.
I don't want this to be taken the wrong way, but we had battled with media coverage in this case throughout my time investigating it. The media's covering it. It's an important case to them. They want to stay informed. And because of that, I was very concerned that if word got out that we were opening this tank, that the media would show up. So the way this post is situated, I was only able to put the tank in a position where I could conceal two sides of it. So if you could imagine the building being in front of me, I can put the tank up against the building and you won't be able to see it from this direction. You won't be able to see it from behind me, but you could see it from over here. So in part, I asked the fire department to bring a fire truck and park it on this side, just in case the media showed up, nobody could take photos or video from the road.
Okay. Additional reasons that you had the fire department there?
The lab requested that they be present in case there was any toxins inside of the tank.
So after you've determined that the tank is empty, what do you do?
We had contacted a private company to come and help us open it up.
One thing I like is he is very matter of fact. Another thing I like, the prosecutor is asking him questions that tells a story. It's not he can just, because they know this is the lead investigator, this is the final witness, so they just want to tell the story to put everything in the jury's head, but it's just flowing. They have that entire timeline just going, and she doesn't have to stand there and say, then what did you do? So when you ordered that, what did you do? What, if anything? It's just flowing, and I really like that because you just get hooked on it and you're just listening along and, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Oh, yeah, okay, you called a neighbor. That was kind of an idiot who smelled an ammonium tank because that'll ruin your lungs. I really like him. This is how it should be done. Exactly.
We elected to make some cuts into the end of the tank that was still factory welded, so not the post-factory weld that we had discovered. I wanted to preserve that for evidence. So the first thing I asked them to do is to cut me a small hole so I could see into the tank.
So as he's cutting this open, who's all standing right there?
Me, the gentleman that's cutting it, I think he had a partner with him, and there may have been a fireman nearby and another state trooper.
Did you have any protective gear on, any face masks?
No.
Okay, and did the gentleman that was cutting open that square for you to look in, did he have any face mask or protection?
No.
After he cuts that square open, what do you do?
He made one initial cut, and I think I asked him to make it a little bit larger just after that. But my intent with this opening is I wanted to see inside and take some videos and photos on the off chance that when we're finishing the cigar cut, if you will, to open it completely, I was worried that we would disturb the contents. So I wanted to get some photos or video of the interior before there was a chance for that to happen.
So you stated that he cut the end off, cigar cut. What do you observe when he cuts that end off?
There is something wrapped inside of a blue tarp, and there's also a piece of steel, maybe about this big, that I later learned to be a baffle. A baffle is something that would sit vertical inside of the tank, that when you're driving would help keep the liquid from sloshing back and forth, essentially.
There's People's 108. Is that the item that you're describing?
Yes, the baffle is that square piece in the bottom, and the blue tarp is the other item that I described.
All right. After you make these observations, what do you do?
From there, we started to remove the blue tarp from the tank.
When you say the blue tarp, are you just removing the tarp, or are you removing the whole
The
contents?
human remains inside of it and the blue tarp at the same time.
All right. Who else was there when you were removing the body from the tank?
Myself and several troopers, the company that helped us open the tank, the fire department was still present, and several members from the lab.
Thank you, Nick Taylor, for becoming a member.
I don't recall anyone else.
Was there a medical examiner investigator that was present?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Okay. After you pull her body out of the tank, what do you do with it?
At that point, the medical examiner is in charge of human remains. So they essentially take legal custody of it. It's the human remains in the blue tarp are placed directly into a body bag. That is then sealed with, it's not a lock, but a seal with a label on it. So we know that it was closed and not open until the actual ME starts their autopsy the next day. And from there, it's escorted to the medical examiner's office in secure storage.
From the time you take the body out of the tank until you place the body bag on it for the ME, did you take any of the tape from the tarp or any other items?
No, we're not allowed to.
Okay. After her body was removed from that tank, did you look inside the tank?
Yes.
What else was in there?
Aside from that baffle, I observed a quarter to a half inch of liquid in the tank. At this point, we had tilted the tank in a negative axis so that liquid wouldn't come out. So it still was inside of the tank at this time.
Did you observe a purse in the tank?
No.
Did you observe a phone in the tank?
No.
Any other personal items?
None whatsoever.
Did you observe shoes?
No.
Socks?
No.
And doesn't prove she didn't do it.
Did you attend the autopsy?
Yes.
Did you watch Dee Warner being taken out of the body bag?
Yes.
Were you present when Dr. Cho opened up the tarp that contained Dee Warner's body?
Yes.
What did you observe inside the tarp?
I observed the remains of an adult female wearing pajama-like clothing wrapped in duct tape. There were a few small pieces of jewelry on her person, and she was barefoot.
No socks?
No socks.
No shoes?
No shoes.
Did you observe any of her other missing personal items, such as her purse or her cell?
So she was hit by a car. That's how you tell if a person has been hit by a car if they don't have shoes on. I've learned this. I could be a detective. So she was hit by a car before she welded herself inside. Esma, we knew this. Only you and I knew this. Dale's tank leaked. Funny, not funny. Well, it's not his tank that leaked per se. He stuffed her in a tank where there was still liquid. And after 3 years, you will be contributing to that pool of something that's in there. Don't think about it.
Cell phone or her go bag in there?
No. No other items.
After the autopsy, what did you do? Did you secure any items from the medical examiner?
Yes, from the medical examiner's office, we secured all of the personal effects located on Miss Warner, so her clothing and jewelry, as well as the duct tape that was bound around her, the tarp, and the duct tape that was wrapped around that tarp.
Did you send any of those items to the lab?
No.
Why not?
There's several parts to that answer. So in general, before you can submit something to the lab, you have to wait until it is dried. So for instance, just as an unrelated example, if you were to have someone that was stabbed with a knife and they were to have blood on that shirt, we can't send that to the lab while it is wet. We have to hang that somewhere to dry before we can send it for examination. In this instance, we took all of those items and hung them to dry in a secure storage area. Lab personnel came to that secured area to review those items with us, and based off of the current state of those items, they essentially would not dry. We were unable to process anything that was inside of the tank around her person because of the condition that it was in.
You didn't just put it outside of the storage unit where everyone has access to it and leave it to dry on some butcher paper. They should have called Massachusetts. They would have fixed that problem. And Emspire says, Dad says to his son, son, if you don't stop master debating, you'll go blind. The son says, Dad, I'm over here. True story. This is why I'm 27 years old and a virgin, because I have heard that and I have 20/20 vision, because I have. Thank you, Emspire.
I'm going to have, can you hand him People's Exhibit 234?
And Kesima says, took till the final witness, but we got it in. She welded herself inside the tank. Baker, we should take a victory lap. Nobody believed us. Yeah, and then she duct taped her body and duct taped the tarp outside. I'm just saying, hell has no fury like a woman scorned. They will go through the end of the earth to get you. Clearly, it was a car strike. The occupants of the tank flirted with a Fed and got drunk, hence the bad weld. Exactly. All of this is true.
Sir, I've handed you People's Exhibit 234. Do you recognize that item?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and what is that?
This is pieces of tape that were located inside of the tank,
Okay.
duct tape.
All right. And where has that item been located since August of 2024?
We have a secure storage facility near our headquarters in Diamonddale, near Lansing.
Okay. Inside, outside, where was it located?
It's been in a large steel shipping container.
And can we just mention it? I really like his suit. Finally, a police officer where the suit fits. I like his tie. He's very well put together.
Container. Essentially, all these items have been hung to dry, essentially, since then.
And is that duct tape, is that dry today?
It is dry. So in order to present it to court, it has a very strong odor. So I couldn't put it in a paper bag or produce it outside of this plastic bag. In order to prepare it for presentation today, we have attached it to this piece of cardboard just so it would stay upright and sealed it in this plastic. And just from sealing it in the plastic within days ago, you can see some mold and bacteria growth because it's still moist. It's still not dry, unfortunately.
And is that why you cannot send that item to the lab?
Because it refuses to dry. Yes, ma'am.
Out of all the items that you were looking for when you became involved in this investigation, what have you recovered thus far to date, as we sit here today?
Can you ask the question again? I'm sorry.
Yes, out of all the items that you were looking for, including Dee Warner, since you became involved in this investigation, what items have you recovered up until today?
Outside of her person,
Correct.
none of the other items.
After you discovered Dee Warner's body, did you reach out to somebody to ask questions about the welds?
Yes,
And who was that?
I made contact with a welding expert by the name of Justin Schmidt.
How did you get Justin's contact information?
Through my time specifically investigating homicides or other more serious crimes, it's not uncommon for us to reach out or try to find a local expert in a specific field. I can think of a death investigation I had that involved very nuanced medical data, and I reached out to a university and a doctor there agreed to review records for me. In this instance, it was no different. I essentially looked up the local higher ed and came across Justin's name and just reached out to him.
Did you know him prior to contacting him in August 2024?
No, when I called him, neither of us had ever heard of each other.
After speaking to Justin, did you execute any additional search warrants?
Yes.
All right, and where was that at?
After speaking with Justin, we executed a search warrant back at the Munger farm. And I don't recall the specific date, but I'm near certain it was in August.
August of 24?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. When you go do this search on Munger Farm, what's the procedure?
Specifically for search warrants.
Correct.
So typically for a search warrant, you're going to secure the area that you're searching. Depending on that type of area and what you're doing would dictate the type of resources that you need for that.
Okay. On this particular day, when you did the search on Munger Farm, tell me how you conducted that.
In this instance, at that time, Dale Warner's adult son, Jaron Warner, was residing at the residence on and off, depending on whether or not he had his younger sister, Lena. And based upon that, I would typically call him between 10 and 15 minutes before we arrived at the residence, which is not common practice. The reason why I would do that is I was very confident that nothing that we were looking for could be disposed of in that time before I arrived. And to be frank, Angelina had been through so much. If we could avoid her seeing a bunch of police back at the house again, I wanted to avoid that as much as we could. So in this instance, I did something similar to that.
What items were you looking for when you went back to the Munger Farm?
When we go back to the farm, we wanted to thoroughly investigate the type of welding equipment that was available, as well as chains, hooks, tarps, duct tape, paint.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm forgetting something. That's all I can think of now, ma'am. Oh, excuse me. Decals that were on the tank, as well as there was a handwritten note on a tag that was tied to the tank. I wanted to see if we could locate those also.
I'm going to show you People's Exhibit 109. Where is this at?
That is in what we call the spray barn, which is also known as building number 7. So you are standing on the south side of the barn, looking south. So there's a big bay door. If you're facing the bay door and looking to your right, that's where those shelving units are located. And if I may, ma'am, we also seized the trash can lid that I just saw in the photo.
Okay, thank you. People's Exhibit 110.
That is one of the cabinets that was previously pictured. And if you look in the door pocket down to the left, there's a dark blue container. Inside of that is a roll of black duct tape.
Can you hand them People's Exhibit 111?
Can we open this, ma'am?
Yes, please. Sorry about that. I didn't know I still had the scissors.
Roll of black duct tape.
All right. And did you observe, where did you find that particular roll?
That was the one that was just pictured.
Okay. Right here in People's 110?
That's correct.
Okay.
We were searching for and seized this because typically our trace elements portion of the lab, if I were to collect duct tape from the scene of a crime and I were to bring them a roll of duct tape, they can do what's called tear matching and see if that piece was the last piece torn off of the roll. Unfortunately, in this instance, as we discussed, the lab was unable to process those items.
Okay. Did you seize additional rolls of duct tape, black duct tape on the farm?
Yes,
Approximately how many rolls?
I can think of 2.
And what color were they?
Those were also black.
I'm going to take you in.
Didn't she just say, did you confiscate other rolls of black duct tape? What color were they?
To the new shop. Can you hand him Exhibit 233, and do you still have the scissors?
Yes, ma'am.
What is that item?
This is an ammonia decal that is similar to the one that we discovered on the tank when we discovered it.
Where did you get that item from?
There was a storage.
They don't need gloves because they couldn't find any evidence on these pieces. So they haven't been processed. So they won't be processed in the future either.
Desk kind of looked like a drafting table with wide, narrow shelves. And inside of those drawers, not shelves, I'm sorry, inside of those drawers were a series of stickers just like this inside of the new shop, which is also known as building number 5.
I'm showing you what's been marked as People's 116. Is that the location that you found those?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to have you look at People's 117. What is that?
That is one of the drawers that's open with several of those stickers inside of it.
Can you hand him Exhibit 119, please?
Guess you like to open this one, ma'am?
Yes, please. Can you identify what that item is for me?
This is a war egg placard.
Oh, stay. I don't know what procedure you're having, but I hope, fingers crossed, everything will be absolutely fine. And just like Zach, that you come out with at least 2 inches more. So now Zach's up to 3 inches. Fun fact, unruly flight passengers can be duct taped mid-flight if necessary. Probably a good way to keep them. That would be a shitty way to fly. Oh yeah, that's what Zach said. He broke his ankle for his operation. But good for you. You're getting it operated. I had a friend back in we call it people school. That's what we all have to go through too. And we were out drinking one night. And when we were going to like a sports, like a rec center that they had a disco, and on the way out, she slips on some stairs, and my ankle kind of hurts, but she was drunk, so she walked to the party, stayed at the party, came home, and the next day she said, "Mom, I think something's wrong," and she had broken her ankle and walked on it for maybe 5-6 hours after that. That ankle took some time to heal again. But yeah. Because I saw the before and after pictures. As I bet a lot of you saw. I actually said when Sue came in here late that now we only need side eyes. And then the road to hell. Dr. Rachel, you know what you came into. It's a Baker stream. It's a Baker stream.
It's similar to one that was discovered on the tank, on tank 34.
Thank you.
Well, being 14 years old and drunk as a skunk probably helps in that situation.
I'm going to have you look up at the screen at item People's Exhibit 120. Do you recognize that?
Yes.
What is that?
That was one of the drawers that just had miscellaneous number stickers that were similar to the numbers that we found on the tank.
Similarly, People's Exhibit 121, is that same thing?
Correct.
Also in the old shop.
So if you learned nothing else on this channel, 14 years old and drunk as a skunk is a great way to get through a lot of injuries. Don't do it at home, kids.
People's Exhibit 159. What is that item?
That is the welder that was previously described and testified to.
And what location was that one?
That is what we call the new shop, which is also in building number 5.
Okay. I'm going to show you People's 293. Again, what are those?
Those are also additional welders on the property.
Okay. What location?
I believe that's also the new shop, building number 5.
All right.
Lies.
I'm going to show you People's 115. What is that?
That is inside of the old shop. So building number 1, kind of right where the number 1 is on this map, is that small narrow corridor that leads to a small office.
And within that office, I'm going to have Craig Lee hand you People's Exhibit 304. Can you describe to me what you found in there? After you open it, sir.
Inside of that office, we located numerous of these manila tags, which match the type of tag that was on the tank with the handwritten note on it.
On tank 34.
That's correct.
Okay.
Can't really tell it on camera. I have this weird bump on my finger because I was opening one beer bottle with another beer bottle that I already drank, and I snapped it, and I pushed it broke the top of the beer bottle, and I pushed that into my finger. That was a fun night at the ER when they had to sew my finger, and they were like, "Yeah, and you're not gonna get any anesthesia because you're drunk already." They were right.
And People's Exhibit 114. What is that?
We located several blue tarps, and that is in the dry barn, which is building number 2.
Do you recall approximately how many tarps you located on the property?
I think there were at least 2 in that building and a third one that was green in the wet barn.
What are you just calling the wet barn? I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, the wet barn is number 7.
Okay. Now, during Detective Singleton's testimony, he discussed going to the property room and taking some paint samples. Where did those paint cans come from on the property?
I seized those paint cans from the metal shelving racks in the back of building number 1.
Just
Pretty much
hold
right
it
where my
together.
fingers.
And how many cans did you seize?
I seized 3 cans, and there was also like a food container with a lid of some paint poured in it.
How many times do you think you had been on the Munger property previous to executing the search warrant in August of 24?
How many times in total?
Correct.
Between 6 and 10, maybe, roughly.
Had you been in the old shop previous to August 24?
Yes.
All right. Had you observed paint cans in there previously?
Yes.
While you were executing the search warrant, did you look for any safes on the property?
Yes.
Specifically where?
I looked in the building number 7 and building number 5.
I'm going to show you People's Exhibit 89. Is this the safe you were searching for?
Yes.
Okay. And you said also building number 5. Why did you look in building number 5?
So this photo was taken by someone before I was involved in the case in the initial search
traveling.
before 25-21. Later, when I get involved in the case, that same safe with that same blanket, I personally observe it in building number 5.
People's Exhibit 88, is that the
Yes.
photograph? Okay. Do you recall when that was that you observed it in that separate building?
May of 22, I think. I'm not certain.
Okay. Approximately how tall was the safe?
I can't recall in inches, but it's up to my chest.
Okay. Approximately how wide is it?
It's about 5 feet wide.
How deep?
What's the difference between swine flu and the bird flu? Bird flu requires treatment, and swine flu requires ointment. Yes, and if you don't already know, Mary B is the wonderful co-host over at Rat House Media. Her and Danny makes everything better if you are up at late nights. And maybe tonight after her treatment and when she's on heavy pain medication, Danny can do a show and we can all enjoy that show. I think Mary B could be fun, heavily medicated.
Is it?
28 inches.
Okay. You indicated it stood approximately up to your chest. How tall are you?
I'm 6'7".
Oh my.
What are you looking
Ladies.
for this safe for? What's the purpose?
The reason why I was looking for that safe when we returned for that search warrant is there were not many, if any, other objects inside of building number 7, the week of 4/25/21, that you could hide a body in, with the exception of this safe. So I was in search of the safe to see for myself how easily you could remove the shelves that were inside of it and how likely or possible it would be to fit a person inside of it also.
Did you find a safe that was similar to the one that you observed?
Yes.
What brand was it, if you recall?
He probably asked her, he said, "Hey, lady, I'm single. Can you just ask about my height so it gets out there, spread on the internet?" So now, ladies, this handsome, strapping man who can fill out a suit, who can dress properly, is 6'7" tall. Everything I am told is in proportion. So don't notice his wedding band, but hit him up in his DMs.
It's a Canon safe.
Okay. And
Hey, Amy.
what did you do when you found the safe?
Canon Safe manufactures 2 safes that are approximately that size, the one that was on the Munger farm at the time. And between those
did
2,
something good.
I found the smaller of the 2. And upon locating it, I experimented with removing the shelves, which I did so in 30 seconds. They come out relatively easily. And I also got into the safe to see how much room there was.
You got inside the safe in the
Yes,
store?
ma'am.
Okay. Who took your photograph?
The store manager didn't want to be involved, so I put it on a timer and put it on a shelf to take my own photo.
All right. I'm going to show you people's exhibit 254. What is this?
That's me laying inside of the safe.
The safe that you've just described?
Yes, ma'am. Inside of the safe.
Brother, you need to train your legs, but I bet this was the best day at work ever. Let me see if I can fit inside this safe.
The safe that you've just described?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank
255?
you, Marissa, for saying
Same.
we should go back and watch it.
People's 256?
The same.
Just a different position?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. 257?
That is the front of that safe.
And people's 258?
That is the safe when I initially opened it with the 2 shelves. And those very similar shelves were in the safe that was photographed at the Munger farm. Those are the ones that came out within 30 seconds or so.
Had you previously watched some body camera footage regarding the safes on the property and the FBI, how they got access to those safes on October 11th, 2021?
Yes.
Yeah, never have your ankles and your face in the same photo if you're a man.
Give me 1 second.
Another thing is that we haven't done this yet, but I think it's 3 seconds, the bigger ones. Either I'll escort you to them, you open them, and that's it. Yeah. Plan B is our tools, our key. You don't want us to use our key. But yeah.
And at that time, he indicated to, was that Detective Greca on the body worn camera?
Kevin Greca, yes, ma'am.
Okay, that he would open those safes?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, let's see those reenactment photos.
For the record, Your Honor, that was People's Exhibit 305 that I played for Detective Greer. Again, with you being inside that safe, can you tell me how tall you are
6'7",
and your weight?
about 230 pounds.
Did you indicated that when you first took the tank, you took it to the Northville lab to be processed for prints. Did you hear anything back from the lab regarding those prints?
To be clear, we had an x-ray that went to the lab to make sure I understand you.
Correct. So after, I apologize. So when you have the lab tech come and take prints off tank 34, correct?
Correct.
All right. And as a result of her analysis, you get a report back, correct?
Yes.
And did you have somebody take Dale Warner's fingerprints?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And who was that?
That was a Trooper Mead, who's an evidence technician for the Monroe Post.
And do you know what he did with those prints after he took them?
Yes, he provided them to me, and I delivered them to the lab for comparison.
Did you observe any additional surveillance footage after finding the body of Dee Warner?
Yes.
How much?
Not as much as my partner, but a good amount.
Okay. We watched a lot of footage with Detective Singleton earlier in the week, and do you recall seeing Dale on the JCB after the 6:39 timeframe of the tank appearing in the background?
Is he on the JCB after 6:39?
Do you recall seeing him on the JCB after 6:39 with Ivan?
As far as I recall, Ivan uses it for trash, if I recall correctly.
Okay. All right. I'm going to show you the old shop front it's 4/25/21 at 6:39 p.m. And where's this located?
This is in building number 1 of the old shop.
Okay. And I paused it because the next time it activated is 6:46 on the screen. All right. All right. And did you recognize who that was getting off the JCB?
Dale Warner.
And do you know who that was in the old shop?
Ivan Boyd.
Did you look at any additional drone images or footage from the 427 search?
Yes.
I'm going to show you People's Exhibit 168. Was there anything during the course of your investigation that stood out to you about this photograph?
Yes.
All right, and what was it?
There are, it's difficult to describe in this photo, but there are tracks through the grass leading around to the back of the burn pit. So if you were to start in the burn pit where the white tank is and go to the right around the other debris and back down towards the right-hand side of the screen, those tracks continue through the grass. And they head toward the direction of building number 7. There are not tracks that lead directly to that by no means, but you can see tracks around the grass heading towards that direction. And they lead essentially up to where the area of the tank is.
So essentially, would it be on the north side of that tank?
That's correct.
And
so
then,
there's something blue south of the tank, just to orientate. I'm sorry. Yeah, so on the top of the top of the tank side, you can see the tracks leading up to it.
Okay. Detective Singleton testified about during the course of the investigation, he had information on life insurance policies. Were you the person that did the search warrant for those?
I'm near certain, yes, ma'am.
All right. And did you find information for April of 2021?
Yes.
How many policies did you find?
There's 2 life insurance policies for Dee Warner.
And who was the beneficiary in April of 2021?
Dale Warner.
Throughout the course of the investigation, did you learn any phone numbers for witnesses, certain witnesses?
Yes.
Did you learn Stephanie Vogel's phone number?
Yes.
Did you look through the defendant's call records to determine what time Stephanie Vogel called the defendant?
Yeah, she called him at 10:31 a.m. on 4/25/21.
Why did you want to know that? I'm sorry.
He indicated very consistently that the first time he knows that Dee Warner is missing is when Stephanie calls him, and that occurs at 10:31 a.m.
Has he ever indicated anything different about how he found out that Dee Warner was missing?
No, he's been very consistent in that fact.
Throughout the course of the investigation, have you had communications with family members or given updates to anybody?
Yes.
Who?
My primary points of contact, because Dee has several adult children and we took over the case, they agreed that we would provide updates to one of them and they would kind of spread the information. So I primarily have contact with her adult son, TJ Bach. I also have on and off contact with Greg Hardy. And my primary point of contact for Mr. Warner was his adult son, Jaron.
Throughout the course of the investigation, Did the defendant ever contact you for updates on his missing wife or the case?
The only time Dale Warner ever called me was seeking his iPad and iPhone back.
Had you ever tried to contact him?
Yes.
Did you at any point in time tell him you were taking over the investigation?
I called him when it was publicly announced, and I'm near certain I didn't speak to him, but I left a voicemail.
You indicated that you also talked to Greg Hardy about certain things during the investigation updates. Is that accurate?
Yes.
How did you come to know Greg Hardy?
I came to know Greg Hardy through the investigation as Dee's older brother.
And did Greg Hardy give you tips throughout the course of the investigation?
Yes.
Like what?
Greg Hardy gave me tips about certain pieces of land that he thought merited investigation, primarily areas that he thought we should excavate and do digs at. He gave me a tip about where Dee's wedding ring currently was. It has never been located since the week of 425. He would call me with kind of the local gossip, more gossipy tips that really sometimes don't really have any relevance towards evidence.
Did you follow up on every one of Greg Hardy's, what he thought could potentially happen to his sister?
No. Typically his tips would be a gut feeling or something he heard from someone, or in some cases he would hear a piece of information and perhaps was interpreting it a certain way that wasn't always the most accurate.
Did you ever search Greg Hardy's property with his consent?
Yes. Several times.
And did Greg Hardy tell you where to search for the tank or what tank to search for or any information about the tank?
No. He had a basic understanding of what was typical for Dale Warner's tanks and a contact for someone that had rented them.
Did he give you the contact information for the person who's going to cut open the tank?
So we discovered the tank on a Friday, and I meet with the family to inform them that we're going. I was concerned that somehow there would be a media leak, and I didn't want them to learn that way. So I made contact with them in person, informed them of my intention to have the tank open the following day and make some confirmations. And he offered a metal fabricator that he knew personally to come and open the tank. But no, that is not who did that for us.
All right, thank you. While Kevin Greco was still part of the task force, or it was still essentially his case, did you have communications with him?
With Kevin Greco?
Correct.
Yes.
Did you communicate with him after the case was over?
I think I came across him one time organically through a law enforcement purpose, and then I provided him with a subpoena for the prelim, and that was the extent of our communication.
Did he ever contact you after he retired in August of 2024 to give you any additional?
It's been a little bit of a weird case, but it ended yesterday, but we missed a day because I had to go do some stuff. So that's why we're rewatching Monday's stuff. So it's Monday on a Wednesday. Anime must be happy. The case is pretty open and shut. Dee Warner goes missing in 2021. And there's a story about her. She might have left with someone because they were getting a divorce. And but she stole between $50,000 and $100,000 from their company, but left a $35,000 wedding ring, as you do. And she goes missing. No one really knows anything. And in 2003, her husband is then arrested in a missing persons murder case. And in 2024, they go back to the farm, find a fertilizer tank that has a weird weld on it that looks really homemade and really badly done. They x-ray the tank. Inside it, you can clearly tell there is a human body. They then open the tank. Dee Warner is in the tank, apparently duct taped with her hands to her side and her legs duct taped together. And we were just told by this is the lead investigator who took over from the first lead investigator. That lead investigator didn't want to testify in this trial, but he did show up. But she also has a blue tarp duct taped around her. Me and Kesema are still believing she did it to herself. It is a suicide just to frame her husband. I think the rest of chat believes that he probably did it because the tank was welded shut after she was put into it. She had brain bleeds and had been strangulated. Again, probably suicide. for those of you who are new here, yes, I speak sarcasm. But he has been really weird because he started out with saying, well, she had this way of running away and hiding at her kid's house for a couple of times a week, and we know we have heard that from her a couple of times a month, and we've heard this from her kids. She would leave him every month, every other month, but would always go back to him again. Now she was just gone, and all her things were at the house except her curling iron. He was really obsessed talking about her taking her go bag and a curling iron, because apparently that's something women do. What do I know? I don't know women. And this case, as I said, was cold for 3 years. And actually, it looks like a really shitty police job when you look into it. But the case has ended. The defense put on 3 witnesses, one to confirm that he had a cough and he had a amicable divorce from his first wife. Another one to testify that there was light on at the house the day before she disappeared. And the fourth one was Dee's brother, who hated the defendant like the plague. And if he could have punched him in the face, he would have punched him in the face in the courtroom. It was the worst defense ever put on. So we're just watching the lead investigator going through all the evidence they found when they started looking into it. Can someone refresh me on the cause of the brain bleeds? They don't know because you can't tell. They could just tell she had, but it must have been I think he said, now I can't remember, the ME was pretty early on. Blunt force impact is what must have caused them. So blunt force impact is what it is. Hold on, isn't this how Houdini learned his magic tricks? Maybe this is where the defense is going to be going. Well, they rested yesterday, so they're not going there. Hey, Dave. I'm sorry, Miss Brown. I'm sorry. I won't say anything for the rest of the stream. Did we ever figure out why the cough thing was brought in? Maybe they'll bring it up in closing arguments. I didn't understand anything they brought in on the defense case. Yeah, that was such a bad look, putting that brother on. Salt of the earth kind of guy who could have played a farmer in every movie ever made. And they had him crying on the stand. A man, you can tell he could have gone to war and come back. He probably went to Vietnam. I don't even know how old he is. But he was rock solid. And then when he said, I'm sorry, and he turned away and dried his eyes because it's not manly to cry, and he was sorry that he showed emotion. You could just, the jury was probably filling out guilty at that time. Yeah, he did look old enough to have gone to Vietnam. But he was that kind of guy. He was Midwest. If you're painting Midwest, kind of like if you're painting San Francisco, you use a painting of Zach, you would have used a picture or drawing of this guy.
No information about this case?
I never saw or heard from him prior to coming to court.
No, because they would have had a late start today because the judge had morning docket. They took the day off today. Tomorrow they'll come back, do the closing arguments, and then we'll go into deliberations. Yes. He had put up billboards and stuff like that. I still don't get what the hell they were doing. And why put him on the stand and show the jury that it's such a mistake?
After the x-ray of tank 34, so you go, you find this tank, you seize it, and you take it to the bridge and have it x-rayed. Did you communicate with anybody in the Warner family?
Yes.
And who is that and why?
I communicated with Dale Warner's adult son, Jaron. When you execute a search warrant, there's something that's called a return and tap. So for instance, if I were to come and search your residence with a search warrant, at the end of the search warrant, I'd give you a copy of the warrant, and I would also give you a list of all the items that I'm seizing, kind of like a receipt. It's called the return and tab or the tab. Through this investigation, I primarily served the return and tabs to Dale's adult son, Jaron. So in this instance, I x-rayed the tank. I have a pretty good indication of what's inside of it, and I called Jaron to inform him that I had executed a search warrant on Paragon Road. I had found an anhydrous tank with some anomalies, and that my intention was to x-ray it and cut it open if necessary to reveal the contents.
And at that time, you had already x-rayed the tank, though?
That's correct.
Why did you tell him that?
Through this investigation, well, investigations in general, information is power. And so when you have control of information, sometimes it benefits you to release it and sometimes it doesn't, like when we discussed the welding theory early on. In this instance, it was a benefit to me potentially to tell Jaron I had discovered specifically tank 34 and that I was going to x-ray it and cut it open so that I can later listen to communications between him and Dale Warner to see what that conversation would be like.
And how would you be able to listen to communications between Jaron and Dale Warner?
At that time, Dale Warner was at the Lenawee County Jail as an inmate.
So explain that. Just he's an inmate at the Lenawee County Jail. How are you going to listen to that conversation?
Jail calls, as we commonly refer to them as calls, you're making to and from the jail as someone that's incarcerated. Those are recorded and monitored. The inmates are explained that. There's notices stating that, and they're informed of that every time they make or receive a phone call.
So every single time a phone call is made or received, they'll get that notification.
Yes.
Okay. And did you become aware of a phone call in this case?
Yes.
All right. And who were the participants in that call?
We discovered the tank on Friday. I make that phone call to Jaron on Friday, and Jaron Warner and Dale Warner have a phone communication the next day on that Saturday.
So August 17th, 24?
Correct.
Your Honor, at this time, I'm going to play People's Exhibit 227.
For English, press 1. Thanks. For a collect call.
I know this initial part is pretty loud, but then once it gets into the phone call, the voice is softened. So I don't know if the court, if you want to handle the volume.
Call, press 0. For a debit, please enter your PIN number now. At the beat, repeat the phrase. With Global Silly, my voice is my password. Please enter the area code and phone number you are calling now. Please hold. Please wait while your call is being connected. Please hold. Hello, this is a prepaid call from
Dale.
an inmate at the Lenawee County Jail. To accept this call, press 0. To refuse this call, your current balance is $40.71. This call is from a correction facility and is subject to monitoring and recording. Thank you for using GTL.
Sure. Hey, Jim. Hey, guys, how's it going? No one's got to leave lunch, so. Yeah, quick call, able to talk to you separately, help you around. So yesterday, the detective texting said that they had a search warrant to search the Paragon property and at the farm trying out buildings again. I'm like, again? He said yes. So long story short, they took anhydrous tank from the Paragon property and they're taking it to get x-rayed. And if they can't get results of the x-ray, they're going to cut it open and see if there's any solids inside of it. Okay. Yeah. Anhydrous tank number 34 is what their search warrant says. Tank number 34? Yeah, I don't know what the specifics of that is or what, but like this is fucking idiocracy.
Some of you locals, was there something about they looked at the son as a co-conspirator at some point?
Yeah. So we took that tank and now they're x-ray or something, and they're doing the x-ray, they're cutting it open. Like, what the fuck, what a waste of fucking time. Okay. Yeah. Wow. That's not good. See the guy anytime because so Grandpa, police officer on news about it. They told me yesterday they were keeping it low key or whatever, it's only 2 seconds they were coming out, but I guess it wasn't low key. Well, low key, not low key this morning, I guess. Okay. Yeah. It's a horrible trip. Yeah. So when did they do this yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. I don't know, getting the search warrant. They said that they see something, but then they see like 11 o'clock at night time. Email me the search warrant. It doesn't look like it's maybe 34. I just they don't have anything, so they're searching for anything. I guess somebody's trying to make some bullshit out. Yeah.
So it's from like the that you want to paint, that you want to paint it up with the details or something?
I have no idea what it is. I'm trying to go on to develop the 34 this year. Some stuff Mary social, I'll talk to you about it later, but. More tax files at work.
Yeah, what?
There's more tax files at work.
Okay.
Kirby's just got here, just talking to my mother, figuring out what you gotta get for school supplies, going out, I guess.
Probably doing that one.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, he does take you out and stuff, so she got another folders and all that shit.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
She don't want you to your stuff last year, she wants to get stuff. She wants to keep all that stuff, all the papers and everything, trying to keep all of them.
Oh,
Yeah.
everything ordered up and ordered.
Yeah. Yep. So taking her in on Monday to get the work clothes off the foot, the tires work.
Oh, so it doesn't work.
Yeah. Get tires work. She's trying to do some testing, and she's talking about it, so she's gonna have gymnastics for the next 2 weeks, so we get them doing this.
Thank you, Garbage.
We have going out now, 2 days, hopefully. You did anything work last night?
Yeah, I got them, the other night, from last night, man, what's last night, I brought them too late last night.
Good. I don't know, is there a number out? I think there's 25 books in the series, and that might be like, I guess 24, 25 now, right? Yeah, that might be like 17, 18 or something you have. That's it, number out?
Yeah, I think there's 4 more.
So you know the later ones, you got better books?
What's that?
The last couple of minutes, you better books.
Yeah, the last one's a lot better.
If you can see if they can run out of materials from the dry books or something, you know?
Yeah. Everything gets better and better.
Well, it was just, I'm not excited these ones here, but I figured better play it, so you see up here or something, that's fun.
Yeah, great.
Let's just see what's going on here, yeah.
Hey, Dory.
More shit.
Yeah. But, did you guys got the Sean's supposed to have a meeting on Tuesday with Sean's, me and you, and then on, I think Wednesday, they're doing their mediation, so I take all day, I'm sure. Check that out, the state.
That's what they said, so. So, see how that goes, I guess.
Yeah. Hopefully start moving in the right direction.
Hopefully get something straightened out in Sean's.
Yeah, it'd be better not to worry about all this probate shit, to be done, and focus on the actual trial and get that shit taken care of.
Right.
Like, 17-day bail once all done enough?
Yeah, sure, come on, okay.
We're approximately 8 minutes and 40 seconds into that phone call. Is there anything additional that's discussed on there, to the best of your knowledge, about that tank?
No.
You want the rest of that audio play?
Yes, I do. Thank you.
So,
When we came up with that.
yeah, I know. So, I don't think it's worth the sentiment, but whatever.
Right. So the next surgeon in home there too, or?
I don't know, they said that Mr. Flynn is in the house with the technical home managers for the house, not the house, but for the surrounding buildings around the house and the field around the house, not in their house itself. But just they were here for 5 minutes, they went out back by the burn pile, and another bottles. He said they were there for like 5 minutes, and then they left. So there wasn't much use in that paragraph. Yeah, you know, a bunch of them dug everything up already. Yeah, FBI was there, but you know, I can see if I guess. I don't know. Definition of insanity, do the same thing over and over and expect different results. Yeah. Hopefully they have to be done with them. Is this insane? Sure, yeah, you got, I guess. Yeah. Well, you said that, you said your last when I want to play. Sorry. What do you guys want? We had beans and rice. Beans and rice favorite, huh? No, my favorite, yeah, beans and rice. Ready? From here. Yeah, undercooked beans and rice. Undercooked, a little tough, really. Yeah. You talked to Sean last. Was that when they got Sean last? Yeah. Last week, last. Yeah, last week, it was Wednesday, Thursday. Spend all day, all week. So that's why there's a mediation for anything that furniture shit. I didn't go on the phone for 4 or 5 hours and I've been doing So good in the brain, beans and stuff looking good over times. I don't know, like half inch, yeah, looking pretty good. It's looking good. Supposed to have more day, but I think I get good day, I'm calling for it. Eric shot by over there, something a little bit. Yeah. He said that Uncle Billy and Little Billy were down in, I don't know, Fort Wayne, in Tractor Bowl or something, last couple days, and now they're going to MIS for the race or something, they got the passes, some of them, the C4 people or something. Grandpa was like, how you gonna get it? You're always away. Give him shit. Yeah. Okay. Nice day out today. It's definitely gloomy right now. Rained a little bit earlier, but not much. Supposed to be more, I think. Yeah. Maybe just making extra crispy here, quite from a mile away. Which nice. Yeah. If you look at it, and for a year for a walk, that's one position. Make sure it's free and still want classes. She loves it. Looking for a mirror for a locker. Oh, yeah. Small locker. You know, let's check the twice next to spell our pens and folders and all that shit. What's that now? Yeah. You get much money staying ahead? No, so I watched a little this morning, but got getting kicked out that 1,000 so. Yeah, but yeah, I gave up. Is it the job does not work off from 6 to 8? Yeah, they'll work off from 6 to 8 9. So I figured that needs to be time to watch it. It's like no calls for off. But yeah, they don't have shut off then. So. Yes. Quiet here. You out of your room or you got in the main area? Not in the bedroom right now. Gotcha. Keep going around there? I'm gonna come a little later. I guess this kind of game was 4:30 or something like that. Lions? No, I think it was.
You have 1 minute remaining.
They called for 8 minutes and he already spent $40.
Yeah, I didn't see.
Can't be one of those things you're talking about.
That's more expensive than me calling Americas.
Super somewhere.
Yeah, there's 2 suits.
And then, rent or whatever the suit, this was separate.
Yeah, bring the suit, Joe. 2 grand. 2 months.
So you learned something else, one time over something.
Yeah, so it goes.
This must be around sometimes, I wonder if you think.
Yeah, 7 minutes. So. Oh, yeah, I will talk to you tonight after. Yeah, already.
Okay, sounds good like that.
Thank you for using GTL.
I apologize, Detective. I was a little bit off the mark with the tank there. I have no further questions of this witness.
You want to make the approach? Just about timing. Thank you.
So they had him on the stand for an hour and 45 minutes. And I really liked what we saw. And now they are taking a hell of a long break. That's 2 hours and 25 minutes. Are they taking a 2 hour? Yeah, they're taking at least a 2 hour lunch break. Well, that's a long break.
4-21841-FC, People versus Dale Warner. We did, over the lunch hour review,
Thank you.
number of questions from the jurors, and it's my understanding at this point that there is, for the most part, there's an agreement on all the questions that would be asked. There's agreement on all but one question that will not be asked, and I'd just like to take a moment to read into the record the questions that will not be asked. The first is, could you reveal the amount of the life insurance policies? Was there an attempt to cash them in? If so, when? Second is, was there any significance to the amount of duct tape, the placement of the duct tape on the victim's body? Did the ME report that it could have been done to stop bleeding? The third is it sensible to say, with everything involved, it would be very difficult for a person not familiar with the farm to put Dee's body in a tank? The fourth is, was it determined if Dee was killed in the house? The last question that will not be read is, did you ever try to interview Jaron Warner? And was Jaron ever interviewed? And there was disagreement with respect to that issue. Ms. Wise, I don't know if you want to make any record of what your position on that is. If you'd like to, you can go ahead.
Your Honor, I just believe that that question potentially opens the door for further questioning that we would like to explore. And I'd hate to mislead the jury by only allowing that portion of the question to be read. Oops, I didn't even notice. So while we would love to explore that issue, the court has placed limitations on our questioning on that. So we understand the court's position. So.
Okay, Ms. Chartier, is there anything that you wanted to make a record of with respect to that issue?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, and just for clarity, the court's position is that those questions could have been asked with answers of yes or no only. However, the follow-up would have gotten us into an issue of assertion of the Fifth Amendment privilege, which I would not permit any questions about, because under the applicable case law, that would not be appropriate for presentation to the jury. Is there anything else that we need to address before we bring our jurors?
No, thank you. I think we.
Well, it's perfectly fine to call someone in prison to say, "Hey, how you doing? Hang in there. Everything's gonna be fine. But calling someone and say, "Hey, I heard the police was just here. They looked at tank 34. Oh, tank 34. Yeah, maybe do that off the record, because they say this will be recorded." That is probably because I was told this is going to be such an explosive phone call. You don't really get a lot of things other than. But I like the jury questions has been great so far.
I wanted to excuse officially some witnesses who are not going to be called. So by stipulation, I will read the names if the court is amenable to that right now.
Go right ahead. So with the exception of Cameron Warner, the witnesses just named will be excused.
Well, he potentially would have pled the fifth, and the judge is saying, I will not put him in a position where he could have pled the fifth. So, because he's not there to answer.
Anything else?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Okay.
You are in the meeting now.
Happy. We are going on cross right now, Courtney. You are way too speedy. That's not one. You are way too impatient. To what's the word I'm looking for? Irregardless, we're getting to the cross. No, and you can't ask him questions, and then you have to call the son, and he says, I'm pleading the fifth, because then his testimony will be unanswered. What's the problem, Sue? I asked you, irregardless if I know the word or I don't know the word, you should answer my question.
All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to resume. I'm just ready to proceed.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective Lieutenant Greer, my name is Mary Chartier. I think you know that because we've been in the courtroom together quite a bit on this case.
Yes, ma'am.
So I have some questions for you this afternoon. What's your current position?
I'm a detective lieutenant with the state police.
The Michigan State Police.
That's correct.
And we already went through this. You began working on this case in March of 2022.
Thereabouts, yes, ma'am.
And you were working again with the Lenawee County Sheriff's Department to assist them.
That's correct.
Then was your primary contact Kevin Greca?
Yes.
Then in August, specifically August 9th, 2022, you took over, meaning the Michigan State Police took over, correct?
Yes.
And you were the officer in charge, is that correct?
Yes.
Now, you referred to Detective Singleton as your partner. Were you peers? Were you leading him, directing him? How did that work?
By rank and job classification, we are peers, but in your words, he did work at my direction.
Okay. Now, when the case was transferred over to you, you received thousands of pages of documents, is that correct?
Yes.
And you organized and reviewed them?
Yes. In tandem with him. That was my hesitation, so yes.
Did you have these items when you started in March, or did the bulk of them come in August?
Probably somewhere in the middle. So we had a lot of documents when we started assisting, but when we take over late summer, early fall, we then go and collect all the physical copies. So there may have been some things I didn't have yet, but we had the bulk of it by then.
And then you listened to prior interviews that had been conducted?
Yes.
No, you don't want to go back. He's just summarizing the entire investigation. He's the lead investigator. We're just starting cross, so you came in at the perfect time, because now he will try and pick apart everything we heard for the first hour and 40 minutes of his testimony. But irregardless, please hit the like and subscribe.
And watch those videos?
Yes.
There were quite a few, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then you conducted your own interviews, right?
Yes.
Reviewed the surveillance, you and in conjunction with Detective Singleton?
That's correct.
So if there was a piece of evidence in this case, you or Detective Singleton reviewed it and you were aware of it. Is that accurate?
Yes, there were other detectives involved also, but us two primarily.
Now, the missing items that you indicated of Ms. Warner's, I want to make sure what specifically is missing?
Are you saying what disappeared with her?
Yes.
Essentially. Her go bag, her driver's license, her passport. There were some personal hair care products and her phone.
Is the personal hair care, are you talking about like hairspray, curling iron, that sort of stuff?
Correct. I think there may be some makeup also, but I'm not positive on that.
And those items to this day have not been found?
Initially, one item, I think it was maybe the curling iron, was reported missing, and that was found within a few days. But with the exception of that, the other items have never been located. That's correct.
Where was the curling iron found?
I think it had fallen on the floor near like the bench near the bed, essentially. Like maybe in between, they found it a few days later, thinking it was gone, but it was actually there.
But the other items have not been recovered?
That's correct.
Now, there were extensive searches that were conducted by law enforcement, correct?
Yes.
Well over 3,000 acres?
Yes.
And those were done to look for Ms. Warner as well as her belongings, right?
Yes.
Now, when you are deciding where to conduct searches, what is going through your head in terms of like where you want the police to look?
That is based off of training and experience of what are the areas that are most probable to possess and or develop evidence, essentially. That is something that would be roundtabled between the other detectives on the case.
So when you're looking, for instance, for the phone, the wallet, those sorts of things, is it fair to say that you're looking for areas where people involved in a crime would hide, conceal, or destroy evidence, and they do so in areas that they're comfortable with?
Yes.
And does that language sound familiar?
Yes.
Because you actually wrote that. So
Very eloquently.
it's fantastically worded. And we talked about the searches were not just land, but again, all different kinds of waterways. You said essentially small inland lakes, ponds, creeks, rivers, that sort of stuff, correct?
Yes.
I want to talk to you about some of the searches, and there are quite a few, and I'm not going to go into them each and every one in detail, but I do want to go through the overview of the searches. So Ms. Warner is reported missing on April 25th, 2021. On April 26th, 2021, Kevin Greca goes out to the Munger property, right?
Yes.
And then he searches the Munger home.
He walks through the home with Mr. Warner. Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you said walk through, is that different in your mind than search?
Yes.
How so?
If I were searching a house, I'm going to open all the drawers. I'm going to look under the bed. I'm going to go in every cabinet. Versus a walkthrough is a more preliminary walk through the house. So the two, and I'm not trying to split hairs, but there is a difference in my mind.
So when he's walking through the house, though, while he is not opening up necessarily every cabinet, he is looking for things of potential evidentiary value, correct?
Yes. Yeah.
And he also has a body camera on when he's doing it?
Yes.
So that other people can see what he's doing.
That's correct.
On that day, he also interviewed Mr. Warner?
Yes.
And he also interviewed some other people that day as well?
Yes.
And to be clear, you would agree with me, Mr. Warner didn't have to speak with Detective Greca, correct?
No, he did not.
But he chose to do so, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So then on April 27th, 2021, I think we've established there were two searches of the property. The one earlier in the day was the consent search that was cut short, and then the evening one was via a search warrant. Would you agree?
Yes, on 427. Yes, ma'am.
427. I apologize. Did I miss the data?
No, I'm just making sure I'm with you. Yeah.
Okay. For April 27th, 2021. And on that date, if we combine both those searches, land was searched as well as buildings.
Yes.
And then we know that they had both cadaver and tracking dogs there.
Yes.
And drones.
That's correct.
Because we've seen some of that footage. Again, Mr. Warner spoke to the police that day, correct?
Yes.
Now, when he changed his mind with Detective Greca, you've listened to that audio and video, correct?
Yes.
And he indicated that he, at that point, thought Ms. Warner was at her son Zach's house and she would be returning and he needed to get back to farming. That's what he said.
A loose paraphrasing, but yes, ma'am.
Sure.
But that's the gist of what he said. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, no, it's not a direct quote, but
Yeah,
that's
You've been here for a while. I'm really busy. I got to get back to work. You guys got to go, basically.
Now, then there was another search on April 28th, 2021 of an additional property owned by Mr. Warner, correct? That's Cedar Point.
Yes.
And that was a consent search?
I'm not as familiar. I'm going to take you for your word on the date. I know that they eventually did a search there.
Do you want to see a report that will indicate the date?
I'm not arguing with you. If you
Okay.
want me to look at it, I will, but I'm just.
No, that's.
I know they definitely searched it that week. I'm just not sure on the date. Yeah.
That's great. And if at any point in time, it's a lot of reports, if you want to see it, feel free. So then on April 29th, 2021, there's another consent search of the Munger Road property, correct?
Yes.
And that had canines and drones.
I'm not positive on the drones, but I know there's a canine there. Yeah.
And also, that's when the surveillance system was checked and phones were retrieved.
Yes.
And Mr. Warner again speaks with the police.
That's correct.
There was another search on May 10th, 2021, and Mr. Warner consented to that.
I'm not certain where that search was.
That was to retrieve electronic devices, as well as Ms. Warner's mouth guard. Does that ring a bell?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
And then he also consented for her dental records.
That's correct.
There was another consent to search on May 14th, 2021. And I'm not saying that there was a search that date, but Mr. Warner was asked to consent to a search of his properties and he said yes, correct?
I don't recall that one specifically.
Okay.
Ma'am.
Would you pull up GA-AZ01, page 39?
$519. Yes, ma'am. 519.
Oh, no, if you look at the top, it says 514. We'll get to 519 in a minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. The way it's laid out is confusing. Now I see what you mean. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
514.
So Mr. Warner had called and indicated that his properties could be searched, correct?
Yes.
Now, on May 19th, 2021, he again consented to a search of all of his properties, right?
That's what the report says. Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna object. Do you have any personal knowledge about what properties he's consenting to, or is this all for reading?
My personal knowledge is limited to what's in this report.
So Detective Lieutenant Greer has testified extensively today, as well as when he testified on the first part of his testimony about what was done in the investigation as a whole. He indicated he reviewed every police report. I asked him about every video, every audio, and that is going to drive what happens in the investigation.
Okay, that's fine, but he's saying he doesn't have personal knowledge of the answers to the questions that you're asking. And he can't simply read from the report. If you'd like to use the report to try to refresh his memory, I think you're welcome to do that. But that isn't what's happening here. What's happening here is he's just giving you answers from the report.
Okay.
And I don't think that's appropriate from an evidentiary standpoint.
Thank you.
So Detective Lieutenant Greer, did you review this Lenawee County Sheriff's Department report?
Yes, and ma'am, you can just call me detective. I appreciate the formality, but
Okay. So you reviewed this report, correct?
yes,
Do you have any reason to believe that anything in this report is inaccurate?
yes.
Okay. So what?
After reviewing the report, we found that what was in the documents was not always a great representation of what occurred on body camera. So we actually went through and watched all the body cameras and did a loose transcription or synopsis of those events.
So would that be, for instance, a police officer might write something happened and then you're saying that was not backed up by the body camera?
More often it was that what happened on body camera wasn't completely or accurately summarized in the report.
So somebody had their body camera on and then whatever occurred, and then the synopsis did not match what was on the body camera.
If I can give you an example.
Sure.
So I went to this place on this date and I saw Jim Smith. When you watch the video and it's an hour long and they walked around and they went to get lunch and they talked about XYZ, that was more typical of what we saw.
So the report didn't put in all the details from the body camera?
That's correct.
And so it was really important for you to have the body camera so you could actually review it and get all that information.
That's right.
And so do you have issues with the searches that were conducted? So do you think some of them were written in the report that there were searches, but that's inaccurate?
From my understanding, if the report indicated that a search was conducted, that search was conducted. That's not to say I don't have issue with some of the searches, but the actual documentation of when and where they occurred is, from what I can recall, mostly accurate.
Did you rely on that information as you sort of set, because you're joining in May of 2022, and then in August of 2022, you're taking the lead on it, you and Detective Singleton. So are you relying on documentation of searches and knowledge of searches to sort of chart that path of what you're going to do?
Yes. Another component of that was for some of those searches, there were state police personnel, and I knew some of those people personally, so I could more, in a way, accurately rely on what they said they had done.
Because they would have reports as well.
Or just a recollection of being here and searching that, et cetera.
So when I'm asking you about these searches, so I'll ask about this May 19th one. So May 19th, Michigan State Police is involved in this search in 2021. Are you aware of that?
I know they did some in that time of the month, but I can't recall which search it was. Do you know where it was, ma'am?
Sure. So there were 8 properties involved, including a property for a man named Tom Nortley.
Is this, if I may, is this when they dug the manure pit? Okay, I am loosely familiar with that search. Yes, ma'am.
This is what was considered the large-scale search, which went on for a few days.
Okay.
So are you familiar with that search?
Yes.
Okay. So if I ask you questions about that, would you feel comfortable answering those?
I can do my best.
Okay, terrific. And then is it your understanding that Mr. Warner consented to a search of his properties?
Yes.
Now, you were not involved in this large-scale search?
No.
But you're aware that it occurred because at least some Michigan State Police members were, correct?
Yes.
Now, are you aware that the Paragon property was searched during this large-scale search?
The north side, the area that we dug the following year. Yes, that side was searched. And I'm pretty sure they had a cadaver dog there also.
Would you take a look at page 179?
In this binder, I presume?
Yes.
You're referring to the bait stamp number?
Yes, at the bottom.
Okay.
So if we look, it says Paragon.
As good as the state was rolling, of course he doesn't know what she's going to ask him, and they are on opposite sides. But she seems so antagonistic to him, and I just don't. And she has this. Oh, we've been to court all week together, so you know who I am. This is like being on Discord when there's snits and bits which is the weekly show that Sue and Jemima is having. You should join the Discord. This is like coming in and Sue is like, "Hey, I'm Sue. I'm so nice." It reminds me of that. You should still join the Discord.
On property number 7, you're indicating that only the north part was searched.
That's my recollection. Yes, ma'am.
Now, if you flip that page over, it also indicates that the south side of the Paragon property was searched, correct? And that's about 7 lines down.
It refers to some people walking the field. Yes, ma'am.
Sure, and it talks about search the fence rows, grassy area, barn, and equipment, correct?
Yes.
The south side is ultimately where tank 34 was found, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Now, there was a search on October 11th, 2021 that the Michigan State Police were involved in. Do you remember that? Or is that something that you're familiar with?
October 21.
October 11th.
October 11th. Was that the search with the FBI, ma'am?
Yes.
Yes, I'm familiar with that.
And that was a multi-day search, correct?
Yes.
And sort of the same sort of, and this is where Agent Impala, I believe, indicated that he had searched 37 vehicles. It was a multi-day search. That's the search I'm talking about. And that was a large-scale search involving multiple police agencies. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And as you talked about, there was digging, ground-penetrating radar, all of those things, correct?
Yes. And to be clear, I was not a part of that search.
Sure.
Okay.
But you did review both the Lenawee County Sheriff's Department reports. I mean, I'm assuming.
No, I just want you to understand my hesitation.
Sure.
I'm just trying to recollect on something I reviewed, that's all.
And I know I'm asking you about a lot of dates. So there were FBI reports, Lenawee County Sheriff's Department reports, and Michigan State Police reports. Does that ring a bell?
Those reports probably would have been limited to our canine troopers. I'm not certain we had any investigators there. I don't recall.
They were limited to the canines.
Okay.
Are you aware that Mr. Warner consented to that search of those properties?
We don't care that he consented, because if he didn't consent, they would have a search warrant. He knew she was in a tank that had a very, very strong odor. So cadaver dogs wouldn't pick it up, and it was hidden in a barn. Just move on. Him consenting to searches doesn't prove anything. It happens in a ton of cases. Yes, officer, you can search my vehicle. I don't have anything illegal in there. Well, what about these drug paraphernalia in the center console of your car? Oh, I didn't know they were in there. So someone else just smoked meth in your car. It must be the Swedes.
I'm not familiar with consent or not on that one. I'm not certain. I believe the FBI requires a search warrant to activate their field team, but I'm not certain.
No.
Did it surprise you that he did consent?
No.
And then that search, as we talked about, continued on for a few days, correct?
That's my understanding, yes, ma'am.
And then with that, there were fields that were searched as well, right? So we're talking about properties in terms of houses and buildings, but the search also involved fields.
I don't recall what all was searched. I know the house was for sure searching the vehicles, but I don't recall anything else specifically.
Through the course of the searches, do you recall that there were cornfields and soybean fields searched?
I'm going to object. He's already indicated that he wasn't present for those searches, and so he doesn't recall them. He's just reviewed a document. Again, it's all hearsay.
I said through the course of the investigation, not just with that search.
So for clarity's sake, you're talking about all of the searches from the entire investigation?
Correct.
I think
Correct.
that's fair.
I thought you were referring to that day, ma'am. I'm sorry.
No. So I said what we've been talking about. I asked about waterways, and then I've been talking about buildings and the home. But through the course,
She wasn't there. It doesn't matter. We can play this game. She wasn't found here. She wasn't found there. She wasn't found anywhere until she was found in a barn in a tank that's consistent with one on his farm, with his fingerprint on a tag and a bad welding job. It doesn't matter that she wasn't found everywhere else. She was found one place. She's annoying me.
of the investigation, you'd agree with me that there was actually like land searched fields, correct?
Absolutely, yes, ma'am.
Now, May 4th, 2022, there was a search of the Munger Road property, and you would have been involved at that point. Do you recall that?
Yes, ma'am.
And that included the outbuildings and the office building, right?
In the home, yes, ma'am.
In the home. Thank you. And then on May 10th, 2022, there was another search of the Warner property, and Michigan State Police was involved with that.
Can you give me that date again, ma'am?
May 10th, 2022.
I don't recall what that search was. I'm sorry.
I might be able to refresh your memory. Was there damage to the Hummer during a search?
Oh, yes.
Okay, so tell us.
I did not damage the Hummer.
You did not, but tell us who did. He's already done testifying.
Yes. One of our computer crimes analysts got into the very large commercial sprayer and attempted to get some data from it and bumped the handle. And if you could imagine a monster truck moving slowly towards a vehicle waiting to crush it, that's essentially what happened. So the tire grabbed the Hummer a little bit and crashed the back end. And to his credit, Mr. Warner wasn't angry at all, surprisingly so.
And so it's that search. So I thought that might.
I was definitely there for that, yes.
I thought that might refresh your memory. Mr. Warner had given consent to search, correct?
I'm not certain if we had consent. I feel as though if I was there, we wrote a search warrant.
You may have had a search warrant, but do you also get consent? You heard Detective Greca say that sometimes he'll get consent along with a search warrant.
In my professional opinion, when someone has revoked consent to search their property, I will get a search warrant moving forward, so there's no confusion. So at some point, he revoked consent to his properties. In my mind, I'm going to write a search warrant for his land moving forward. So I can't speak to what Greca did at that time.
Now, we talked about damage to the Hummer on that date. Were there other instances where there was any damage to the property?
Yes.
And what was that?
I can think of one in particular. I requested some digging be done by building number 7. Would you like me to point it out, ma'am?
Sure, if you'd like to.
On the side of building 7, we had a small excavator dig here. And between this building 7 and this, I'm not sure what to call this small structure, there was an electrical wire that we damaged during that dig, just based on the machine digging through the ground. Aside from that,
to be nice, Miss Scarlett is newer here. Don't call her scarier. She's nice. I made her cry the other day on her stream.
I cannot recall any damage as a result of a search warrant.
So just the Hummer and then the electrical wire. Or do you count as damage the holes taken from the couch? So there were sort of cutouts in the couch in the living room that were circular. Would you count that as damage? Or
yeah, those items were damaged. Yes, excuse me. And that was during the FBI search in October of 21, if I'm not mistaken. But nothing else.
And welcome back as a member. I don't know why that doesn't pop in the other chat. Well, it still showed up in my StreamYard chat, and I like to make fun of you, so deal with it, Sue.
Comes to mind, other than those 3 incidents.
you had talked about a phone that Mr. Warner had gotten in. Essentially, he put Ms. Warner's phone number on that phone. He got a new phone and populated that phone. Correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh.
Are you aware that he had asked permission from Detective Greca to do that?
Yes.
Then we talked about the searches that occurred in May. Were you present for the search of Ms. Warner's mother's, a home of Ms. Warner's mother, not where she lives permanently, but
Miss Warner's mother's?
Mr. Warner, excuse me, Mr. Warner's mother.
The vacant house that Clara owned?
Yes.
Yes, I am familiar with that.
Okay, so there was that search, and she was cooperative when the police showed up to search it, correct?
She was angry to find that we found a dangerous snake in the crawl space. Otherwise, she was perfectly fine with us being there.
What did you do with the snake?
I don't mess with snakes, so I didn't do anything.
Just let it go on its way.
That's somebody else's problem, unfortunately.
And then we already talked about there was the search of the lake. That was essentially a lake bed in June. Is that accurate? June 2nd, 2022, and Michigan State Police would have been involved at that point as well as you.
That was a consent search from somebody otherwise uninvolved?
Correct.
Yes, ma'am.
Then October 28th, 2022, Mr. Warner again consented to a search of his property, right?
October 28th, 22.
Specifically a field.
October 28th of 22. He gave me consent for something in 22?
He consented to a field for his property to be searched. Would looking at a report refresh your memory?
Yes, ma'am, please. In Lenawee County.
Is it? That looks like an 8 to me.
Well, in 22, it would have been mine by then.
No, I don't make her cry on my stream. I made her cry on her own stream. I'm not scaring my own audience away. I'm scaring her away. Well, that's my own audience. I'm an idiot. Yeah, the snake did it. I watched someone, when you're just scrolling through videos, and there was a guy who got bitten by a bushmaster. I think that's called bushmaster. And luckily it was a dry bite, but apparently they are quite nasty.
Lenawee County wouldn't have been getting consent for anything.
Okay.
But no, otherwise I'm not familiar with this.
Okay. But if Lenawee County has consent to search forms in their report, you're not disputing that those are valid, though, correct?
I would have no basis one way or the other, ma'am.
Then there were also searches in early May 2023, and this was a multi-day search of lots of properties. Would you agree?
Yes, ma'am.
And this went on with a lot of people, correct? A lot of officers searching.
Yes, I think we had at least 120 personnel involved for 2, maybe 3 days.
And you divided it into areas?
That's correct.
I'm not going to go through every piece of property searched, but for instance, in Area 1, you searched properties, by you, I mean law enforcement in Brooklyn and Onstead, and that totaled a little over 407 acres, right?
Correct.
And then there's no Area 2, and that's just for administrative reasons, sounds like. Area 3, properties in Onstead, totaling 79.82 acres.
The totals are sounding accurate, but I couldn't tell you from memory how much land was in each area. I'm really sorry.
Would you like to either look at sworn testimony that you gave before or a police report?
I can tell you off the top of my head, it was.
Bushmaster, the longest venomous snake in the New World, found in scrublands and forests from the Amazon River Basin to north to Costa Rica. 3 species of bushmasters are known to exist, and they normally measure about 1.8 meters, 6 feet long, but may grow as long as 3 meters, 10 feet. These large snakes are reddish-brown to pinkish-gray in color, matching their forest floor habitats, and they may bear X-like and diamond patterns across the back. Although seldomly encountered, the bushmaster is dangerous with potential lethal venom. The bushmaster is a pit viper. Infrared pits located between the eyes and nostrils are used to smell prey. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah. 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 So that's a bushmaster for those of you who didn't know about that horrible creature just until now. So now, if you are in the New World, you can fear that thing too.
Roughly 3,000 acres that week that we divided into areas, but how much was in each area, I couldn't tell you from memory.
Well, let me ask you this, so I'll just ask you about the cities where these occurred. So there were 8 properties in Tipton, does that sound right, in Area 4?
Yes.
10 properties in Tecumseh in Area 5?
Yes.
Area 6 was Leroy Seiler's property in Tecumseh?
Yes, ma'am.
And that was the property that Mr. Warner went to spray on April 25th, correct?
That's correct.
Area 7, there were 8 properties in Onstead?
Yes.
Area 8, there were 13 properties in Tipton?
Yes.
Area 9, there were 5 properties in Onstead?
Yes.
Area 10, there were 3 properties in Tecumseh?
Yes.
Area 12, there were 7 properties in Adrian Township?
Yes.
Area 13, there were 4 properties in Madison Township?
Yes.
Area 14, there were 7 properties, 3 in Tecumseh Township, 2 in Raisin Township, and 2 in Ridgeway Township?
Yes.
Area 15, 1 property in Onstead?
Yes.
There was also, I think you talked about a search in January of 2024, correct? Did you talk about that when you on direct?
January 24 or January 23, ma'am?
Excuse me, January of 2024. Was there a search in January 2023?
I'm sorry, give me a moment. So, I'm having a hard time differentiating the January, so sorry.
So do you want me to see if this refreshes your memory?
Please.
It's when the John Deere utility box was swapped.
Yes, that's what I would call the reenactment with the front end loader, that search.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
So that's January, I believe, of 2024. Would you agree?
I'm sorry, I thought it was 23 at first, but I
Okay.
believe you. Yes, ma'am.
And then there was also later on in that month an excavation, correct?
Was that the excavation we discussed earlier?
Yes. Now, we already talked about vehicles were searched. That includes the JCB and the Kubota, right?
Those were searched by the sheriff's department. I'm not certain that we did anything with either of those vehicles. We utilized the front end load of the JCB for the reenactment, but I'm not certain that we searched it formally.
Now, when you talk about the later search where you found the duct tape and paint cans, those sorts of things, you said you found those, you grabbed the paint cans off the shelf?
Yes.
Now, do you know when the paint cans were purchased?
I do not know, ma'am.
And what about the duct tape? Do you know when that was purchased?
I do not know, ma'am.
Anything, the tarp, anything like that?
No.
Did it surprise you to find Rust-Oleum white in a barn on a working farm?
No.
Did it surprise you to find duct tape there?
No.
Did it surprise you to find a blue tarp?
No, ma'am.
Or I should say there were multiple blue tarps, correct?
At least 2, yes, ma'am.
And same with the drawers and with the stickers in them. You don't know when those were ordered, correct?
I do not.
You're finding them in 2024, and Ms. Warner had gone missing in 2021, right?
Yes.
And were those doors locked?
No.
Were the buildings locked when you were there? Did you need a key to get into every building?
On that specific search, I don't recall. In general, most of the outbuildings were unlocked. I'm certain there's a time at some point we needed a key for something, but most of the time, things were open for us.
You know, just a couple of things that you had spoken about. You said you did a geofence and then the fog. And the geofence is essentially, you said, sort of putting a perimeter down on a location and then seeing what devices pop up, correct?
Yes.
Do you remember what, with geofence, what devices popped up?
I know there was more than one, and I think we attributed both of them to Dustin Lally.
And we know that Raquel Bach was on the property too, correct?
Yes.
But her device didn't come up.
No.
Now, do you recall where areas of the house swabbed for human blood?
I wasn't a part of those searches. I know that's, you referenced the holes in the couch. That was primarily why that was done, to my understanding, but I wasn't present for the rest of that laboratory type of search. I couldn't tell you.
You don't dispute that it was done. You just weren't directly involved. Is that correct?
I know
Sophie is getting
the
it.
chemical was called luminol. That's what you use to look for human blood in searching. I know that was deployed, but I'm not certain of where.
I want to clear up a little bit about a phone download. So I want to make sure I understand. So Detective Hooper did a download of Mr. Warner's devices in April to May 2021. Is that accurate?
Yes, his phone and iPad. Yes, ma'am.
And then Ms. Vanden Heuvel did a later download, and she testified on Friday, and that's the portable case that you're referring to, right?
I may have referred to both in my testimony.
Okay.
And she, her download kind of takes some explaining, if I may.
Sure.
So initially, Detective Hooper from the North County Sheriff's Department, he testified to what he did with Mr. Warner's devices. A big part of what you can do with electronic devices depends on the licensing that your department or whoever you work for purchases. They're really expensive. So in our instance, we're fortunate that we have what I will call the A license. We have the newest technology, the Michigan State Police. At the time, Detective Hooper, no fault of his own, he had kind of the B license. So when we examined those pieces of information, the analyst, Danielle Vanden Heuvel, she took the original information that the Monroe County Sheriff's Office had and put it into our A license, if you will. But then subsequently, she also made her or someone from her office made the recommendation, you want to gather these devices again so we can put them all through that A license, if that makes sense.
So her work was from Detective Hooper's to May, because that's what we heard. So essentially, if he did the download and looked at it in, let's say, early May of 2021, she's looking from May of 21 to May of 2022.
No, that's not necessarily true, because the subsequent download that we conducted could also have data going back to April of 21.
Okay, so do you know if it did have, I'm talking about do you know if it had anything additional before April 25th, 2021?
Any data on the phone?
Yes.
Before that?
And if you don't know, it's okay to say that.
I'm not certain, but I feel pretty comfortable saying that device would have had something from before April, some piece of information on it from before April.
Now, the indication where you said you asked for a phone and then
No, you only wish people a happy birthday on their birthday, or it will be bad luck.
Mr. Warner didn't really want to give the phone. He called a lawyer and then ultimately gave you the phone, correct?
I think I argued with you. Yes, ma'am.
You did. You did.
And I got the phone.
You did get the phone. The gun safe or the safe you were talking about, is that a gun safe? Moving to the sprayer barn, where you said you saw a safe in building 7 and building 5.
The safe that I was inside of,
yes.
Those images? Yes, that's sold as a gun safe, yes.
And was that ever tested? Did anyone ever swab that for blood, DNA, bodily fluids, hair, anything?
The Closest to a search that was conducted on that safe is when the FBI was there in October of 21. It was still in Building 7. Mr. Warner provided a combination. They opened it and took a photo of the inside, but no other examination of the safe was done at that time.
At any time, correct?
No, but by the time I realized that it may be involved in some way, I was unable to locate it again.
And that would have been how many years later?
I wasn't looking for it in January of 22. I'm not sure the first time I searched for that independently. For that reason, if that makes sense.
We saw some videos of Mr. Warner speaking to the police. You would agree with me, he spoke to the police numerous times when Detective Greco was the lead on the case, correct?
Yes.
And even when there was the task force, he continued to speak to the police multiple times.
Yes.
And at that time, he had another lawyer, we saw him in the video, named Lawrence Lieb. A lot of times, Mr. Lieb wasn't even present, correct?
Correct.
But Mr. Lieb was fine with Mr. Warner chatting.
I'm assuming yes. I didn't have that communication with them at that time. That was Kevin Greca. But he never made statements to anything otherwise.
And he actually brought Mr. Warner involuntarily to speak to you in December of 2022, right?
Yes.
Now, while you talked about Jamaica, Mr. Warner was always adamant that he didn't harm his wife, right?
Yes.
Now,
If I find something to stream about.
kind of going to that Jamaica interview, it was actually you who brought it up about 45 minutes into the interview, correct? And you said something like, initially you made a statement about Jamaica. Why do you think she'd be in Jamaica, right?
That sounds correct. I would have been asking him about a previous statement he made.
And then he explained why, right? He didn't just say, hey, I think she's living in Jamaica with the drug cartels, right?
When he went into the mystery man that she might have met on a cruise ship.
So, nope, this was when he talked about the fact, tell me if you need to refresh your memory.
I'm sorry, can I correct myself?
Yes.
When he talked about how she was enamored looking up at the hills when they were on a vacation.
Yes, he said she really liked Jamaica, correct?
Yes.
And Mexico.
Yes.
When they were in Jamaica, she had befriended, he didn't use the term concierge, but he said the person at the resort who was able to kind of get you what you want, correct?
Yes.
And she saw mansions up in the hills, right?
Yes, ma'am.
And she thought that looked really beautiful and she'd wanted to go up there, correct?
Yes.
And she was told, don't do that. Those are drug cartels, correct?
Yes.
But Mr. Warner said she was still like pretty fascinated by it, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, ma'am.
What? So she went to Jamaica because she saw some cartel boss's house and she had befriended a concierge. Your story is that she had somewhere between 50 and 100,000. I'm not going to sit here and talk about inflation and the debt ceiling and what the economic crisis has led us into. But you wouldn't get far with a 50 or 100,000 in cash. That's just look at the Corey Richards case. She flipped a house and made 100,000, and he was still massively in debt. This isn't a good explanation. This makes no sense. I'm wondering. I'm really wondering what she thinks this is going to prove. So she liked the house. Let me tell you something, brother. I've been looking at houses for the last year to move closer to my daughter. There's a lot of houses I want to buy, but most of them I don't have the funds to buy. I would love to have a totally new house with a lovely wilderness bath in it and solar panels everywhere, high-end everything. But I don't have the money to buy that. That's called dreaming. That's the same when the mega jackpot hits 250 million. You buy a ticket and then you start thinking, oh, I really want to have a Tesla truck, a Cybertruck, sorry. And you're not going to win it anyway. But those 5 days until they draw, you have a lot of dreams. But you're not going to get there with between $50,000 and $100,000 unless she's going to invest that into a couple of keys, then flip that by cutting it up and selling it on the street. Then maybe she could, because that's how the other people got their mansions. But it takes a little bit of time, and those people in the mansions would probably you before you have enough money to buy their house. I don't know where she's going.
Now, in addition to
Oh,
the-
that's oh.
Oh, and let me jump back. You described, when it comes to Mr. Warner's statements, you described them as being fairly consistent, correct?
No, there was two things he was fairly consistent on. The rest were not consistent.
Okay. I'm going to show you a police report. It says investigated by Daniel Greer. Daniel Greer. It's an MSP report, page 21. And I'd ask you to look at the first sentence of the bottom paragraph.
You're looking at sub 4, ma'am?
I am looking at sub 4, yes.
And can you tell me where to look again? I'm sorry.
Sure. Last paragraph, first sentence, correct?
Oh, yes, ma'am. I see what you mean.
So let me ask you, this is your report that you wrote, correct?
Yes.
Because it's got your name and it says investigated by, and sometimes there are two different names in those boxes, but yours is in both, correct?
Yes.
And you wrote Dale's initial statement to LCSO, that's the Lenawee County Sheriff's Office,
Yes.
which was fairly consistent over numerous contacts, was that Dee had a migraine in the late evening of 4/24/21, and then you go on to detail the statement, correct? You wrote that, right?
Yes. The context here is what I'm typing is fairly consistent over these, is what my intention was. So what I detail afterward was fairly consistent in his statements.
Sure. So what was consistent?
I would be reading it from here.
Okay, well, I'll ask you. Do you remember what was consistent?
The parts that were consistent was that they had some form of a disagreement. How he describes it does change over time, whether it was an argument or what it was. That she eventually got a migraine, and that she took some medication and got hungry and had a little something to eat. She falls asleep. There's some discrepancy about where they fall asleep, and if she gets to the couch or if he goes to bed, that does change over time. They fall asleep essentially. Where they sleep is again changes. He wakes up in the morning and leaves at 6 a.m. is the bulk of his primary statement. The timing of the morning is what starts to change over time.
Also, the other item that you indicated was consistent was that he had rubbed her shoulders, correct?
Yes, he consistently states that, yes.
And nowhere in here, if I flip it over, do you write any inconsistencies, correct?
No, the intention of that paragraph was to highlight the portion that had been consistent up to that point.
So again, you don't write any inconsistencies.
Not in the specific paragraph, no.
Then you...
I'm going to check on rule completeness and ask him to be allowed to testify about all the inconsistencies.
Did you hear about the guy who lost his whole left side? He's all right now. Thank you, Hemsmeyer.
That are contained within the report. Detailed.
I'm asking about supplement 4 that Detective Greer wrote. There's going to be cross-exam or redirect, I should say, but that is the essence of his paragraph.
So I don't think the rule of completeness requires Ms. Charday to do that now. It gives you the ability to thoroughly admit that evidence during the presentation. So I don't think it's required right now.
Okay, I believe the rule of completeness does require it to be brought in when the evidence is brought up, as was not to cause a delay in any evidence. I'll allow her to continue, and I'll bring it up on cross-examination redirect.
Well, how nice that you're going to allow me to continue. So this last...
Bitch, please. That was a little too snarky, lady.
paragraph only talks about consistencies. That's it. So
the argument seems to be over. So
okay.
You can continue your question.
Now, there were hundreds of interviews conducted. You'd agree with me?
Overall?
Overall.
Yes, ma'am.
And you talked about the importance of using a body camera to record interviews because then you were able to find discrepancies between what conversations had occurred and then what was summarized in a police report, right?
In some instances, yes, ma'am.
You'd agree with me, you didn't always activate a body camera, correct?
No, I did not.
And sometimes you would turn it off when the portion of the interview that you wanted recorded was done, and then you would continue speaking to someone, correct?
Typically, at the end of the interview, people would like to ask not direct questions about investigation, but more what's normal and what's going to happen next, those types of things. Sometimes those can become more personal, intimate, like how a person's feeling. It's not always the most appropriate to record. So in those instances, it's common practice for me to turn it off.
What about at the beginning? Sometimes you don't turn it on right away, correct?
I'm pretty consistent about turning it off. I can think of one instance with a reenactment where I gave some direction before recording it, but For the most part, unless it's by forgetfulness, we try to have it on right away.
And there's no, do you record phone calls?
Not typically, no. Unless I have a reason to believe there's going to be some evidence within that phone call.
What about text messages, emails, those sorts of things? Do you have all of them, or have some of them not been preserved, I should say?
Typically, unless a text message or voicemail or email pertains to particular pieces of evidence or any piece of evidence, then those typically are not saved, no.
Do you think it's interesting that, for instance, you looked at some Lenawee, I'm assuming it was the Lenawee County Sheriff's Office reports, and then when you matched it with the video,
the
you were like,
prosecutor.
oh boy, the report doesn't give enough detail, but yet you don't record every aspect of your interview. So no one can go back and look and say, okay, so when you shut off that body camera, the 10 or 15 minutes you're talking to someone, we don't know what happened in that, right?
I can see why you bring that up, but my explanation stays the same. When I'm discussing some intimate feelings that someone's having about a particular instance that aren't necessarily pertinent to the case, especially when those videos are going to be foiled by media and press potentially, I like to protect those people's intimate feelings if I can.
But you don't know someone's going to be talking about an intimate feeling, right? So someone doesn't necessarily say, I'm going to talk about my intimate feeling now, and then you turn it off. You turn it off and then answer whatever questions they may ask. Is that fair?
Well, typically when I turn off my camera, I'll ask someone, okay, that's the conclusion of the interview, and I'm going to turn this off now. And if they disagree, there's something they still need to discuss, then I'll keep it on. But otherwise, that's when it ends. At some point, it has to come to an end. We can't leave the camera on and recording forever.
No, it can't. But when you're still communicating with a potential witness, can you at least see why it would be helpful to have a complete video of the entire communication?
Not as opposed to what I've explained, no ma'am.
Moving to the sprayer, you talked about the fact that you had essentially reenacted Mr. Warner's movement with the sprayer, and you matched it up with GPS information that you received from John Deere. Is that correct?
A combination of that GPS information and Dale Warner's statements of that morning, yes ma'am.
And then did you also, or law enforcement also, look at the weather that day?
We had, and due to a few different reasons, we weren't able to completely recreate that, unfortunately.
But not a very windy day, would you agree?
There's mixed reviews on that. I wouldn't feel comfortable because I wouldn't feel comfortable commenting because I don't know with clarity.
Now, when you looked at, it sounds like you looked at all of the portable case download. Is that the correct terminology that you're using?
Yes, ma'am.
The phone dump that we kind of call it
Yes.
locally. Okay, so you looked at all of that. You also looked at Mr. Warner's fitness data from April 24th to April 25th, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And that indicated that, I should say, that kept recording from roughly 7 p.m. I'm looking to 11 o'clock in the morning, right? That's an area that you had zoomed in on?
That is an area I zoomed in on. I'm not certain I would say that it kept recording.
Well, it shows that he had a heart rate from 7 p.m. to 11 a.m., correct?
I don't feel comfortable answering that with a yes or no.
Okay, so would you show?
I can just explain. I don't think you need to show it.
Okay. So let me ask you if that's okay before you get to your explanation. It showed that Mr. Warner had a heart rate, correct?
Yes.
So it showed the total number of readings, and to be clear, it breaks it down by hour, right? So 7 to 8 p.m., 8 to 9 p.m., 9 to 10 p.m.
There's more detail than that.
Sure, no, but when we're looking at the information you put in a police report, that's how it's broken down, correct?
I don't recall what information is in the report, but I know there's more detailed information in the portable case than that.
Okay, so let me show you what's in your report, if that's okay. It's on page 6.
Thank you.
So just want to make sure we're on the same page. So what you put in the report shows April 24th, for instance, 7 to 8 p.m., April 24th, 8 to 9 p.m., correct?
I think I've discovered the disparity, and we're disagreeing slightly. So this specific report is when we were still aiding the sheriff's department, and we were operating off of that kind of B license of the phone data. So the information I'm referring to that's more in depth was from that A license later on.
Okay.
So I think both things are true, if I may, ma'am.
Okay, great. So let's just talk about this information right now, if that's okay. So this shows a heart rate for Mr. Warner from 7 p.m. to 11 a.m., correct? So it's been recording that entire time, at least according to what was included in the report on March 30th, 2022, right?
Yes. This supplement shows that there's data from 4/20/4/21 starting at 7 p.m. and it collects data at minimum until 4/25 at 11 a.m. But there's data between those 2 hours.
So, and it shows essentially the total number of readings for a time period. So if we're looking at 12 to 1 a.m., it shows 20.
Last one going to bed. Where did Sally go after the explosion? Everywhere. I thought it was a sex joke to begin with. Inspire, go to bed. I got it. Explosion. Yes, I got it. It wasn't a sex joke. It could have been a sex joke.
Three readings, correct?
Yes.
Max heart rate of 67.
Yes.
Distance traveled says did not record. That means someone didn't move during that time. Accurate?
Or that it, for another reason, wasn't recorded, but more than likely they didn't move. Yeah.
And then
I'll object to speculation unless he knows about how the Apple heart monitor and heart rate and stuff work and can describe it.
Look, he just said it could be for another reason, but more than likely it's because no one moved.
All right, well, he answered, but I don't know that there's a foundation for the answer, which is what is wisest challenge.
Okay, so let me ask you this. You looked at this information and then you looked at later information, correct?
Yes.
Did you understand or learn about what you were reviewing?
Simply the data that was put out. I don't understand most of the science behind it from the device.
Right, well, who does, right? I'm saying, did you understand the data that you were looking at? So for instance, when it says distance traveled, did you understand what that meant?
I understand that it's giving a distance, but again, I'm not certain how it comes to that conclusion.
Okay, no, I'm not asking you to figure out the algorithm. I'm just saying, so for instance, when it says max heart rate, do you know what that means?
Yes.
What does that mean?
That would be detecting a maximum heart rate detected at that time.
And what about distance traveled? What does that mean?
That would be how far the device had traveled.
And what about flights climbed?
I would be assuming, but I'm assuming it's how many flights of stairs you climbed at a given time.
I mean, that seems pretty reasonable, correct? That it would be a flight of stairs?
Correct.
So if we look at this and we look at from 12 a.m. to 4 a.m., it recorded no movement in terms of distance traveled by Mr. Warner, correct?
Correct.
And then if we look at flights climbed from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m., it did not record any flights climbed, right?
Correct.
And then if we look between 4 and 5 a.m., for distance traveled, it says 1.18. Do you know what measurement that is? Is that in feet?
That's my assumption.
I want to just move on to a few other things. We had on Friday an exhibit 195. There was a text message exchange between Ms. Warner and Mr. Warner. She refers to a man named Craig. Do you know who that is?
Craig is their marriage counselor.
Thank you. And also there has been some discussion about Ms. Warner's love of jewelry. Would you agree she spent over $45,000 on her K Jeweler credit card from 2019 to April 2021?
Yes.
And did you look at any other records from K Jeweler?
Not anything that would change that. I also looked at receipts and things that supported that figure.
That's what I was going to ask. That didn't seem out of the norm, correct?
I just looked at that 2 years, so I'm not sure how to describe what normal is, but I know that's an accurate figure.
Thank you. Now, we heard a jail call. People are notified that the call is being monitored, correct?
Yes.
And they can end the call at any time they want, right?
Yes.
The JCB reenactment that we saw photographs of, who was driving the JCB?
The one and only Detective Sergeant Mike Baker.
Okay. And then was he being directed? So was someone helping him kind of line up that JCB with the stairs as we go to the door?
Only to the point where he didn't want to hit the house.
How long did it take him to get that up there?
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Do you remember 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, or just have no idea?
When you say get that up there, do you mean from the time he started it in the barn?
Yeah.
5 minutes, maybe. I'm kind of flying blind. I can't remember that far back.
Sure. And that's all right. And do you know how fast he was going?
I couldn't tell you. No, ma'am.
Did he seem like he was going pretty fast, or?
I'm not even certain I was there when he was moving it until he got close to the house. I can't tell you.
Now, even though you did that reenactment, there's no physical evidence on the JCB that Ms. Warner was ever in that front loader, correct?
No,
So-
it was processed, and there was no physical evidence located by the other agencies.
Now, we saw some video from April 25th, 2021, And you'd agree with me, there are roughly 17 cameras on the, not roughly, there are 17 cameras on the Munger property?
I don't independently remember the number, but I don't dispute that there's a number of cameras.
Okay, we heard testimony at trial. You're not disputing if someone said
I'm
17.
not playing coy with you. I just don't remember.
Okay, no, that's fine. And the cameras are motion activated, right?
Yes.
And so in the morning, Mr. Warner is on camera at a number of different times. And if you need to refresh your memory by looking at that report, please feel free. Does this sound correct to you? At 6:58 a.m.?
Yes.
7:13 a.m.?
Yes.
7:23 a.m.?
Yes.
7:30 a.m.?
Yes.
7:33 a.m.?
My memory starting to get a little bit scarce, but I'm still with you. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and if you need to look to refresh it, just let me know.
What page is that on, ma'am?
It's page 141 and 142.
That's the bait stamp number?
Yes.
I see the page, but this is Scott Singleton's report, ma'am. I didn't write this.
Okay, well, did you look at the footage?
Yes, but I don't know it as intimately as he described here.
So do these numbers sound right to you or no?
They sound right because I know Scott Singleton and this would be accurate, but I don't.
So you're saying you don't have an independent knowledge of that?
That's correct.
If Mr. Singleton is, or Detective Singleton, I should say, is saying that he saw Mr. Warner on camera at 7:34 a.m., 7:40, 7:41 a.m., you're not disputing that?
No, ma'am. I would expect these to be exact and thorough, but I don't have independent knowledge of that.
And then are you aware that Mr. Warner leaves the property at 7:47 a.m.?
That's when he goes to Leroy Sealers, if I'm not
Yes.
mistaken. Yes, ma'am.
And then returns back at about 8:11 a.m.?
Yes, ma'am.
Then he's on camera a little bit more at 8:18, 8:19, and then leaves the property again at 8:46 a.m. Does that sound right?
Yes,
And then comes back at about 11:18 a.m. in the sprayer.
that's correct.
Then he leaves the property at 1:48 p.m. and returns back at 2:18. Does that sound about right?
I know he leaves and comes back. I'm not certain on the times.
And the surveillance video is in evidence, so if you don't know, that's fine.
Okay.
Okay, so and if you don't remember that.
I know he leaves about that time. I know he comes back in the early afternoon, but those times escape me. I'm sorry.
Now, Ms. Saylor, would you please pull up snip A for me? This is from the fuel tanks on the property at 3:41 p.m. Nope, that's the wrong one. While Ms. Saylor gets that, and Ms. Vinsky, would you help her with that? Thank you. I'm going to ask a few other questions for you. Okay, is that it? Terrific. Great. So do you know roughly who else was on the property at 3:41 to roughly about 4:12?
Ma'am, this would be a question for Detective Sergeant Singleton. This is the cameras and the timeline. That's his deal.
Okay. Well, so let me ask you this. Did you watch this video? Did you see somebody plowing the field in the back?
I don't independently recall. I'm sorry, ma'am.
Okay, no, that's fine. Did you ever ask Mr. Warner if he was plowing the field in the back?
I just went to heat my dinner because it's 6 o'clock.
I don't recall.
Would there have been anyone else on the farm who would be plowing that field to your knowledge at that time frame?
I'm not certain who else would have been there plowing the field. I have no independent recollection of that, ma'am.
Did anyone tell you, any employee who was there, I also plowed the field in the back?
I don't recall someone stating that, ma'am.
And so you haven't looked at the surveillance video to see the plowing of the field and then what it looked like after the work was done. Was that correct?
I've looked at the cameras. I'm not familiar with the plowing of that field. No, ma'am.
Thank you, Ms. Taylor. Now, I was a little confused when you talked about the welding theory. We heard Detective Singleton say it came up pretty soon, about in April of 2022. Is that your recollection of when it came up?
I know it was sometime that spring or summer, but I don't know exactly when.
And then I was also, so who came up with the idea? You or Detective Singleton?
He was definitely the one that discovered that video, and we discussed it together. I'm not sure if he came to me and said, hey, I had this welding theory, or hey, check this out, and we discussed it together. Some variation of that.
Then who made the decision not to tell Detective Greca?
It wasn't an overt decision to not tell him. We just kept assisting. We didn't mention it one way or the other.
So you and Detective Singleton thought that Ms. Warner, you might know where she is, right? She might be welded in a tank somewhere.
I think to frame it that way is overestimating the confidence that we had in that theory at the time.
Did you, let me ask you this, did you or Detective Singleton follow up on tips from psychics?
In a semi-joking way, Detective Sergeant Singleton was in charge of psychics.
And then you'd follow up essentially on kind of almost any lead if it might have even an essence of credibility. Is that accurate?
Yes, and I think I was being kind of funny, but the reason why we would, in a way, take psychic tips seriously is, I can't remember the specific case, but historically, a psychic called in a tip, and it was really someone that was a witness and didn't want to say they were a witness, and that eventually led to evidence of a crime. So if it's someone that was framing themselves as a psychic called in a tip, I would always hear them out, because they might know something and just not want to be honest about how they know.
More often than not, though, they don't know anything, correct?
That's accurate, yes, ma'am.
So what percentage of the time would you say those psychic tips are accurate?
If it's truly a psychic,
Yes.
0.
Okay. So knowing that you have this like very low percentage that a psychic tip is going to be correct, you still pursue it, right? In general.
That's not even, that I wouldn't say pursue it. For instance, we searched a small private lake. A psychic had called in about this lake, and when I reviewed the property, it was connected to a piece of property of someone that Dale Warner was had a familial relationship with. So based upon that, it can't hurt. Let's go check it out. That's how I would pursue it typically. Does that make sense?
Sure. So what would be the problem? I was confused with saying to Detective Greca, boy, we've got this theory. Let's maybe brainstorm around it, talk about it, look into it.
No, the assignment of assisting the sheriff's department wasn't.
The question is not who is Zach. The question is why is Zach. This is a question we have had on this channel for 3 years. No one has been able to figure it out, irregardless of him leaving hints all over the place constantly. Why is Zach hasn't been answered. So if you figure it out, please tell us why. Why is Zach? When is Zach too much? Wherefore art Zach? Irregardless will get you in trouble with Zach. Irregardless of what Zachs think, every time I say irregardless, 2 is opening another Michelob Ultra.
I don't want to be disrespectful, man. I'm trying to choose my words carefully as my hesitation. It wasn't the most comfortable assignment.
Well, it's because everyone knows, well, not everyone, but a lot of people knows that Prince of Wales is Zach. But he really wanted to be part of the British royalty when he learned about Prince Edward.
There were people there that weren't always receptive to someone else showing up to look at their work. So my assignment at that time was to review what had been done and make recommendations about what had been done, not to present new theories or ideas, and I'm not certain it would have been received well.
Even if it hadn't been received well, don't you think it would have been prudent to at least offer it up, right? Because at this point in time, there is a missing woman, and there is a family hoping to find that missing woman. So whether it's comfortable or polite or courteous, isn't it your job and Detective Singleton's job to say, listen, we've got this theory, and if somebody doesn't want to pursue it, that's on them?
Yes and no. Part of the apprehension at that time is, in my opinion, the writing was on the wall, and it was a matter of time before this case was ours full time. I felt pretty confident in that early on. And
then once it became yours full time, August 2022, why did it take 2 years for this welding theory to kind of take fruition?
It didn't.
Okay, so but you said you were only looking for things underground.
It's a mistake I'm not proud of. I was convinced it was buried, and that's where I was looking.
And
I'm not proud of that, man.
No one thought, well, boy, there are other tanks, not just on the Munger property, but at Carson, at Paragon, on other farms, right? We're talking about Munger, Paragon, and Carson. The reality is those tanks are all over the place, correct?
Which is why eventually I started looking for them. Yes, ma'am.
Sure. But, okay. So you also indicated that you were concerned about a leak. Is that correct?
Yes.
Was that a leak at the FBI, or was that a leak at the Lenawee County Sheriff's Department?
That was a U.S. Marshal.
Okay, so a U.S. Marshal.
Yes.
Did that leak concern you before that family meeting in March with Greg Hardy, Billy Little, that group, or did you have concerns about that before?
It definitely wouldn't be before that meeting. I guess to characterize this, when we had the family meeting to introduce the fact that the state police was going to be helping the sheriff's department, I knew so little about this case. It was kind of embarrassing to be at the meeting, to be forthright with you. I'm not even sure if I had a copy of the report yet. So to have an opinion on anything, I knew nothing.
So you didn't have a concern about a leak before that family meeting. It sounds like. I don't want to put words in your mouth.
Yeah, I had no reason to suspect that there was a leak going into it because I didn't know anything at all.
And then when did that kind of come, your concern bubble up at that meeting?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was misunderstanding your question. Yes, because it's presented to me there, essentially.
Yes.
I misunderstood you.
So
yes.
we heard Detective Greca talk about what happened. Tell us in your words what happened.
His recollection is accurate. We wanted to get consent for as many phones as we could of people that could be involved or have any information on those devices. That was in a way an objective of that meeting. And Greg Hardy did pull us out of the room, and his private investigator, Billy Little, that's when they had that dialogue about pretending to consent but not. There were other people at that meeting that also did not consent to have their phones dumped. And much like Mr. Hardy at the time, simply because someone does not consent to something does not give me probable cause to type a search warrant and take it from their person. So we hadn't met a burden for that phone or other phones in the room that we could seize with a search warrant.
Did anyone else ask you to pretend that they were turning it over for a download but not really download it?
No, ma'am.
So that was only Greg Hardy.
Again, she's going nowhere. You didn't find her when you looked in the field. No. You didn't find her when you digged and ruined an electrical cable. No. You didn't look at this phone. No. You didn't look at that phone. No. Why did you look there? Because someone told us to. You had a leak at the police station? Yeah. What didn't they do? Or what did they do? They found her dead body inside a tank. They saw him on surveillance camera with tools that could have welded that tank shut. That's why he's the prime suspect. None of what she said has any bearing on anything.
And Billy Little. And what was the rationale for that? You said it was a United States Marshal. What was the rationale for not like being concerned that someone would look at the phone?
Well, to be clear, what was presented to me at the time in that dialogue was that Mr. Hardy, I'm paraphrasing, but he says someone, and I can't remember how he characterizes it, but I remember at the time being clear of the fact that someone in some way involved in law enforcement is getting his information, and he doesn't want to part with his phone and reveal that source. There was no explanation of who it was or what information.
Did you know at the time it was a United States Marshal, or did that come up later?
No, that was something revealed much later. When this dialogue is kind of happening in front of me, all of this is brand new information to me. I don't know Greg Hardy. I don't know anything about this case really. So all of this is brand new in that moment.
So Detective Greca, it sounds like, declined. That's what he said. He was not going to play along with that.
That's correct.
Is that accurate?
That's correct.
And did you agree with that decision?
I do agree with it, but it was I would have done the same thing he did, but it wasn't my decision either. He's the one having this dialogue.
Right. And that's what I was asking, was if you were in that position, would you have done the same thing that he did, which said, essentially, I'm not playing along that way?
I'm not going to play your game, exactly.
When did the United States Marshal, when were you able to kind of drill down on that and find out what was going on with that?
That is not something that I did personally. It was just information that was given to me at a later time.
By who? Do you remember?
I can't remember if it was Kevin Greca or someone else at the sheriff's department. I can't recall. And that would have been some months later. I don't recall when it occurred either.
Now, I was a little confused about, so you had this Welding theory, which was based on viewing the surveillance. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And then...
And if I may.
Yeah, sure.
The Google search warrant in his iPad.
Okay, in the Google search warrant. So you had that come up in essentially 2022, sometime in 2022. And then what leads you to now say, okay, we're not looking underground, we're now going to look above ground?
Over the course of the next couple of years, I thought we had exhausted every place to look above ground. I was extremely confident that she was not alive. And I was confident that some harm had come to her and someone had taken her life and that her body was hidden somewhere. And I could not think of another place that was reasonable to look above ground. I felt like I have completely, if someone brought me a tip, I'm absolutely going to go look. But I felt like I had looked every place I possibly could above ground. And which brought me to thinking that we had never just looked for the tanks. Did
Mr. Hardy tell you, like point you to a tank and say, go look for a tank or this? Because it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like this was police work by you and Detective Singleton.
During the preparation that I discussed earlier about how I'm going to empty the tank and how I'm going to look in it, et cetera, during that planning, and then I get to the point where I need some knowledge about where Dale Warner's tanks are stored and how they're used. I had several dialogues with Greg Hardy at that time because he knew the farm intimately, his sister's farm, and he knew about their common practices and where they stored things. So over the course of probably a week, I've talked to him several times on the phone, and I've asked him about welding, and I've asked him about tanks, and we're discussing that. And in one of those phone calls, he says, I'm paraphrasing, I wonder if she's inside of a tank. So he makes that statement to me. but it was after I had been asking these questions. So I had been almost too forward with the information, but I needed him to ask. I need to ask him these questions to get this information at the same time.
I think it's a thing people do, so they put on these black rings for work and to protect their wedding ring. I don't know. I ain't got no rings on these fingers, so I don't know why it's a thing that people put on these rubber rings and stuff like that. Ring free since 2004. 2004. Just preference. Yeah. So don't rip your finger off at work. I've told you about that time I put my finger through that dough press that we have in bakeries because my wedding band got stuck. That wasn't a fun day. Well, way better solution. Just get divorced. And you don't have to have any rings on your fingers. Just get him a rubber one. Well, silicone then. That reminds me of another conversation me and Zach had about silicone rings. Yeah. Again, Zach, I didn't need to see those pictures, but yeah.
So you're aware that Mr. Hardy has made statements to the media?
I'll get my
A
food.
lot of them, correct?
Unfortunately, yes, ma'am.
And do you believe all the statements he's made to the media are accurate?
No.
Specifically as it relates to the tank, have you told him that?
Yes.
And what about it is inaccurate that he is saying?
His characterization of events. He's done. I can think of one interview in particular that's not based upon fact.
And what is that?
Regarding the tank?
What is that?
Which?
Or
what is the statement, or
what
is
the
incident?
statement?
If I can just describe the interview to you, it might
Sure.
be easier. Greg Hardy, in some way, consents or asks media to join him, and he takes a camera crew to Paragon Road, points in this barn, and states, "Look in this barn," where the tank was hidden under cover of darkness or something to that effect, which he would have no way of knowing that information.
And did he actually go on the property with the camera crew?
If my memory serves me correct, yes, ma'am.
And we visited that property last Wednesday. So the barn, if we're on the south side, it's got no locks on the door, correct?
There is a chain wrapped around one of the handles. I'm not sure if there's a padlock on it or not. It wasn't locked the day we were there.
And so the day you were there, you just walked on, right? That there was no indicator of a lock.
Last week or?
No, when you went to go find the tank.
In August?
Yes.
I think it was similar to how it was last week. There may have been a chain wrapped around one handle, but it wasn't locked. I didn't have to force entry other than opening the door, maybe.
Now, with your communications with Mr. Hardy about the tank, and I think we've gone over this, you were on the telephone with him, so we would not have a recording of those communications. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
You had talked about sort of leading up to that point where you went and found the tank. You spoke to someone who had borrowed or been using some of the tanks on Paragon, correct?
Yes.
And the last name of Smith, does that ring a bell?
Was it Henry Smith?
Yes.
I couldn't remember earlier. Yes, thank you for reminding me.
And he was interviewed?
Yes, I spoke to him on the phone, and I think one detective went to see him in person.
And was the issue there essentially, and correct me if I'm wrong about this, he was able to go in, take maybe 10 or so tanks, pick out the tanks he wanted and use them, and you wanted to know essentially, do you have those tanks? Is that accurate?
Yes, I spoke with Mr. Smith on the phone, and he explained that at some point in the past, he had to store a bunch of anhydrous ammonia in a hurry and didn't know where to put it. So we contacted Mr. Warner, and Mr. Warner offered to give him or let him borrow, rent, however it was characterized. You can go take these tanks from Paragon Road. So my questions to Mr. Smith were, what tanks did you take? When was that? And do you still have any, essentially? And when speaking to him, I remembered that I had been to Paragon and saw tanks over there previously.
You talked about the fact that the duct tape from inside the tank still was not dry yet, so you weren't able to do any DNA analysis, correct?
Yes, nothing inside of the tank was suitable for any DNA or print analysis based on the condition.
And that includes the tarp, does that include like the metal inside as well?
Correct.
When the tank was opened, was there a smell?
Yes.
And was the smell ammonia? Or a chemical smell, I should say?
In a way, yes. There was other odors also.
Sure, and unfortunately, because the body was inside the tank. But we heard Dr. Cho say there was a strong smell of ammonia. Would you agree with that?
Oh, yes, ma'am. Yes. And to be clear, I think the reason why I misunderstood your question is Dr. Cho is referring to what's at the office as opposed to being at the tank. That's why I didn't understand you. I'm sorry.
Oh, that's all right. You indicated that you had searched Mr. Hardy's property. When was that?
I searched, well, I don't want to use the word I too carelessly, but we searched Mr. Hardy's property. He has some land this direction going west that has a little pond that we did a consent search on. He gave me consent for, we had a tip about a rental house of his that someone had seen something of interest in the basement. We conducted a consent search there. And
can I stop you? Do you
Sure.
recall the dates of these searches?
I don't. I could probably tell you what year that happened. That's about the best I can.
That'd
do.
be great.
So the consent search in the basement of the rental house, I think that was in Palmyra. The spring of the prelim, would that be 24, ma'am?
That would be 24. Yes.
And I want to say that field and pond was around the same time, but I'm not certain. And I think there's one more area he might have consented to, but I can't recall off the top of my head.
So the two searches of his property were a field and a rental property in 2024. Is that accurate from what you can best remember?
The sheriff's department had searched his barn, which is also down to the west, maybe a mile down the road. They had searched his barn.
Is that because there was blood found there and it turned out to be animal blood?
I'm not certain what led them to search there, but I know that they were there.
Okay. Any other searches?
Not that I can recall regarding Greg Hardy. No, ma'am.
Correct. And then we talked about him making statements that were incorrect to the media. Is it fair to say that the private investigator he had hired, Billy Little, he also made statements to the media which were incorrect?
I'm not certain he ever made statements that were correct.
Okay. Does that make your job significantly harder?
Unfortunately, yes, ma'am.
I have no additional questions. Thank you, sir.
Judge, I have a conflict break.
All right, why don't we take maybe a 10-minute break? We can see a logical breaking point. So we'll do that. We'll come back and resume with that testimony.
I'll leave my stuff here. Judge.
What was the only thing she didn't ask anything about? The tank where the body was found. What state the body was in, the evidence found on the body. She was more interested in what they didn't find on fields they did search. This was her questioning of the lead investigator that, hey, you didn't find the body in the field. No, you didn't find the body dug on the ground. Not one single question that could put a hole into anything the state has presented so far. Nothing. Now I understand why their defense was so weak. Nothing. Yeah. No questions about how ambidextrous you need to be to weld yourself inside a tank. Nothing. There was not one question that was helping the defense, other than you did a shitty job investigating this until you came on and you figured out the tank theory. Well, what a shit show. But at least she got to snark at the prosecutor.
We've talked a lot about searches, whether it's consent or search warrants. Can you describe to me what exactly is a search warrant?
A search warrant is a document that an investigator, a detective, police officer would manually type. That document would detail that they are investigating a crime, what crime that is. It would detail that they want to search a certain place and what place that is. And it would have to detail what they're searching specifically for. And it would have to detail the probable cause necessary to search those areas. So for instance, if I had an eyewitness that said one of you were involved in a hit and run crash and they wrote down your license plate, I go to your house and I see your car parked there, I could reasonably articulate that your car was involved in this crash and I have to search it for evidence of that crash and what those pieces of evidence would be. Depending on the county that you're writing that search warrant in or that jurisdiction, some counties like a prosecutor to review it, some do not. Either way, a judge or magistrate has to sign it to give you that authority.
Now, Ms. Chartier asked you about the defendant consenting to searches of multiple properties over the course of many years, correct?
You're referring to Dale Warner?
Correct.
Yes.
And he consented to searches of all of his properties, except for on what date?
Except for on 4/27/21.
Okay, and what happened during the course of that search?
When the drone team and the K-9 team showed up.
Objection, because I don't think that Detective Greer was present on April 27th, so it wouldn't be from personal knowledge.
This goes to his investigation and why he focused it the way he did. The next steps he did.
Okay, so again, the issue is personal knowledge. So what it goes to doesn't address the personal knowledge issue. So the challenge is that he doesn't have a foundation of personal knowledge to testify to.
So based on the one search that the defendant revoked consent, did you do anything additional? Such as watching the body cams or surveillance or?
Yes. Based on the fact that he revoked consent during that search, once the tank was discovered, we revisited those videos, body cam videos and drone videos to try and reconcile where that tank may have come from and where it was.
Going back to all of these searches and the condition that Dee Warner's body was found in, would you have expected to find her body even on April 26, 2021, with all of the items that you had to help aid in your searches?
Objection, speculation.
I'll lay a foundation. How many homicides have you investigated?
Dozens.
Okay. Have you used K-9?
Yes.
Which type of K-9 dogs?
Both article dogs and cadaver dogs.
Okay. What do you know about the extent of what those dogs can search for?
Those are tools I use regularly, and I have a strong base of knowledge of what they're capable of.
Ground penetrating radar, have you used that before?
Yes.
Okay. And what's your knowledge on ground penetrating radar?
I understand to a point the science behind it and the best way to deploy that tool also.
You talked about FLIR.
Yes.
What do you know about FLIR?
Similar to ground penetrating radar, I understand to a point the science behind it and the best way to deploy that tool when necessary.
Drones?
The same, ma'am.
Excavating?
The same.
Based on your training and experience and the condition Ms. Warner's body was found in, would you have expected to find her even on April 26, 2021?
Objection, still speculation.
I believe he's laid a sufficient foundation for, he knows the facts of this case as well as his prior training and experience.
I would overrule the objection. I don't think it's speculative.
Could you re-ask the question, ma'am?
Yes. Based on your training and experience and the condition that you found Ms. Warner's body in, would you have expected to find her even on April 26, 2021?
No.
You discussed on cross-examination that the defendant purchased a separate device, a phone, to place Dee Warner's iCloud on. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And that was April 29th, 21?
I know it was shortly after her disappearance, but I'm not sure the exact date, ma'am.
Okay. And do you have personal knowledge of what happens when you place an iCloud on a device that was previously used on another device?
Yes.
What happens?
Depending on the settings that you have in your iPhone, depending on how you set up your iPhone, is going to dictate what information is uploaded to the cloud and when, and how often those things happen, and if it's encrypted or not. Those factors, and primarily those factors, are what's going to dictate what you can retrieve from the cloud for an iPhone device. So in this instance, when that phone was purchased and her Apple account credentials were entered into that phone, everything that was on that phone at a particular date was then re-put onto that phone.
Would the device that previously had that iCloud connected to it continue to receive phone calls or text messages?
No, based in the manner in which that phone was activated. So in essence, not only was the iCloud information put on it, but also a line of service was installed from Verizon itself. So now anytime someone called that phone number or sent it a message, it would be going to that new device. So hypothetically, even if her device that she possessed on 4/25/21 would miraculously turn itself back on, it would not be receiving service from Verizon once the other phone was purchased.
You discussed May 2022 search where some electrical wiring got damaged on the Warner property. Is that accurate?
I remember speaking of that search, but the date escapes me.
Okay. And was that because you were doing digging, you said?
That's correct, with a small excavator.
All right. What happens when you damage someone's property while you're executing a search warrant?
That in part is why we take photographs before we start, when we find something, and as we're leaving, after we're done with the search, so we can document the condition of items like that. In that instance, and instances that are similar, the state of Michigan would be responsible for repairing the damage to that property.
You indicated on cross-examination that the JCB and the Kubota were searched by the Sheriff's Department prior to your involvement in this case. Is that accurate?
I know the JCB front end loader definitely was. I can't recall if they did like a forensic search of the Kubota or not.
Okay. But you weren't present for any of those searches, correct?
That's correct.
Do you know what was done during any of those searches?
I do not.
By the time that you came up with the theory on the JCB being involved, did you follow up and do any forensic evidence with the JCB?
The day that we did what I call the reenactment with the front end loader at the house, where you saw it pulled up to the house with the bucket extended, we had an evidence technician with us who did some swabbing in other parts of the property. He examined the bucket, and it had been clearly used so many times, and we've been so far since the incident had occurred that there was nothing to collect out of the bucket or the front end loader itself.
Dee Warner spoke to Kevin Greco multiple times throughout the course of the investigation, correct?
Yes.
And although we've seen a snippet of those interviews, would it be accurate to say that Kevin Greco did a lot of the talking?
Yes.
Hours worth of body camera footage?
Yes, hours and hours.
During the course of your interview in December 2022, you asked the defendant about Dee being in Jamaica or Mexico. Why did you ask him that?
He was making statements to numerous people that was his belief at the time.
Okay. And how strong was he that she was in Jamaica or Mexico when he made these statements?
He seemed to be convinced that she had taken money from the business and that she escaped to one of those places.
We talked about the short paragraph in your report where you indicated that some of the defendant's statements were consistent. Is that fair?
Yes.
Did you also notice inconsistent statements?
Absolutely.
Okay. And which statements were those?
Over the course of his multiple contacts in the coming weeks following her disappearance and in our interview, there were numerous items that were inconsistent with his statements. One of the most glaring ones was he initially states that he leaves the house around 6 a.m. and has gone farming. And it's not until someone notices the front end loader tracks leading up to the house from the JCB that he then recalls that he had to come back. His initial statement is that he comes back and looks in, he says, and she's sleeping. He then later states that he came back because he forgot something and re-entered the house and sees her still sleeping. The particular item that he collected also changes on several occasions. First, it was that he forgot to feed the dogs, and then it was that he forgot his tool, and eventually says that he forgot his piece of paper in the house. From there are numerous times that he changes the sleeping arrangements that night. Initially, he states that they both fell asleep. He falls asleep on the floor, so does she. He puts her on the couch, and then he returns to bed. That changes a little bit over time, but the most dramatically when he interviews with us, and he states that they both slept on the floor all night, and he sleeps on the floor every day. That was a big inconsistency. There was also inconsistencies about the amount of money that was missing from the house and the businesses and when he discovered that. Initially, he states that he's learning of it as it's happening and he's discovering it over time, but there was evidence to dispute that and show that he knew for some time that there was some extra spending coming from the businesses on her behalf.
In his initial statement to on April 26th.
Yes, as the only other normal person in this chat, I am very sorry that you have to sit and read all of this. I'm appalled with the amount of tip shaming going on in chat right now. Leaking tips are a serious problem, especially men of advanced age who forget to do their Kegels can have a leaking tip. Maybe it's because you went to the spa and you were sitting in the hot tub and you got an STD. That's how I have been taught you get chlamydia is by sitting on toilet seats or in a hot tub. That can lead to a leaking tip. So I'm sorry, Casimir, because I think you and I are the only two pure-minded people in this chat. The rest have been listening too much to Sue that always have to make it dirty somehow. So I'm sorry. I am sorry. And for you gentlemen, if you have a leaking tip, remember your Kegels. And if it's pus coming out, you probably need penicillin.
Did the defendant indicate that that's why they were in fact going to see Craig, the counselor that you testified about earlier?
That's correct. That they were seeing the counselor because of the, I'm paraphrasing, but the money dishonesty or Dee Warner spending or something to that nature.
And then when he interviews with you, does he act like this is all brand new information?
When he interviews with us, he's stating that as he keeps looking into it more and more, he's discovering the money that she's been taking from the business.
In the beginning, what was the defendant's statements on how long Dee Warner would be gone?
That changes over time. Initially, when he meets with the sheriff's department, he says she'll be back in a couple days. And as a couple days come and go, it's a few more days. And as a few more days come and go, it's a week, and then a month, and then 6 months, and then he stops making any mention of when she'll be back at all.
Do you recall what length of time, or strike that, do you recall what he indicated to you during your interview in December 2022 about not being worried about her being gone?
I don't recall, ma'am. I'm sorry.
Do you, I'll come back to that. During the course of the interview, the initial interviews, Dale Warner consistently says that he has a conversation with Dee.
If you are a man, of course, this is a man boobs, and it's an older man, so he has a pot belly. Don't think about that little thing. Your male Kegels are, you have to focus on retracting your core, not the entire core, but the lower. Just, you can put your hands in your hip flexors and feel it retracting, and then pull your pelvic floor towards you. Don't clench the party hole. Just kind of feel like you're pulling the taint up towards. So you kind of have these two motions. That's a male Kegel. Really good for your prostate. And if you have a bad back, it's because it'll solidify your corset muscles. So this is what you're going for. Retract the lower abdomen and pulling your taint towards it. That's how you do it. You can do it sitting up. I'm doing one right now. But it's easier if you lay on the floor, put your hands on your hip flexors, and just suck that part in. So if any of you wants to transition into a man and still do your Kegels, this is how you do it.
About like selling the businesses and being done with the businesses. Do you remember that?
Yes, he makes reference to that several times.
Okay. And during the interview with you in December of 2022, he makes mention of having discussions with Dee Warner about the grandkids.
Yes, he essentially states that, now looking back, I realize she wasn't done with me. She's done with business, and she wants to be with her grandkids more often.
And did he in fact say he had a conversation with her about staying home and watching the grandkids during that argument?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. First time you heard that?
Yes.
We discussed Greg Hardy and him allowing you to search his properties. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And the fact that he wouldn't allow you to search his phone during that family meeting at the sheriff's department. Is that accurate?
That's correct.
Did you ever seek a search warrant on Greg Hardy's phone?
No. Both Greg Hardy and the others at that meeting that denied consent I did not have sufficient evidence or probable cause to get a search warrant for those devices at the time.
That's from the right testicle. Your pee is stored in
After
the
you
left
found
testicle.
Dee Warner's body, did you return to the home to look for evidence of the homicide? In the living room, in the bedroom, anywhere?
We did return to the farm.
Let me be specific. Any physical DNA evidence?
No, we did go back into the home, but typically for a homicide, in this case was no different. The lead investigators are present for the autopsy with the medical examiner, so they can see for themselves the injuries, they can discuss them with the doctor, and they can get a better feel for if there was an instrument involved in an injury, for instance. In this instance, we were confident that the injuries did not result in any external bleeding. Therefore,
that's not what Dr. Cho said. So I don't know who he's saying we were confident. I don't know who we is.
Dr. Cho testified that the injuries didn't necessarily mean that she bled out.
That's different than what Detective Greer has testified to. And I think the criticism is that he's using the term we, and we don't know who we is.
Okay. Can you
Not
rephrase?
bad biology. It's true.
yes, in reviewing the
When I had my back surgery, they told me this is how you do it because you have to tighten your corset muscles, which are the lower laying abdominal muscles, because a lot of guys will have they think that, oh, let's just do some crunches and then we'll get a six pack. You won't. You have to eat properly for that. But they'll work out those abdominal muscles. But in reality, the ones that'll stabilize you when you have a bad back are all the lower. And it's the same muscles you have to train when you want to keep a healthy prostate.
injuries with Dr. Cho and having an understanding of the previous searches in the residence that did not reveal the discovery of blood within the house, we were confident that if we went back, we would not find it because it likely was not there.
Again, I know you indicated you didn't search the JCB when you went in January of 2024, but after you found her body, did you attempt to look for the JCB again?
No, for the same reasoning.
The items that were seized by the FBI in October of 2021, the journals and the loose leaf pages, after you found the tank, did you attempt to send those journals and the tag from the tank to the lab?
Are you referring to a handwriting analysis?
Correct.
No, I did not.
Okay, why not?
A handwriting analysis to match one person's handwriting to a known sample, you have to have a library of comparison statements. So for instance, if I were to write, I'm sick and want to go home today, the people that do that evaluation at the lab would require a volume of that same thing written over and over by the person that you're suspecting of doing it. And in this instance, because that would be coming from Mr. Warner, who wasn't cooperative, there would not be a value to that type of evaluation because you'd be forcing him to write these same things, and he would know it's for comparison value.
Okay. And
additionally, because of the volume of items that he had written within the journals, we had a witness identify his handwriting from the journals, matching the handwriting on the tag that was on the tank.
I'm going to move to strike that last statement as it would entail hearsay. We don't know who this witness is. They didn't come and testify in court.
that simply went to his state of mind on why he didn't send it to the lab. If the court wants to strike it, the court can strike it. But it just goes to his state of mind on why he didn't send that item to the lab. It's not hearsay.
I think it's permissible for the non-hearsay purpose of explaining why it was not sent to the lab. It's not permissible.
What's wrong with
for
my eye today?
matter that the two handwriting samples matched.
When you are involved in any type of investigation, but specifically a homicide, when you find the body, why do you send it to the medical examiner?
The medical examiner and the autopsy are going to be crucial for the homicide investigation, as they're going to give you a cause and manner of death. For instance, I've been involved in shooting investigations where you believe someone was shot twice, but when you get to the autopsy, you find out they were shot 4 times with 2 different caliber bullets. That changes the direction of the investigation. So the body of a person has copious amounts of evidence when you're investigating a homicide, as it did in this instance.
What about a person's cell phone?
Yes, a person's cell phone in general is an extremely valuable tool in investigations. In this instance, Dee Warner's cell phone would have had a library of information on it. For instance, She regularly wore an Apple Watch, which would have been collecting health data. Therefore, if we would have had her phone, it would have told us a more precise time that she would have died. Additionally, her phone would have showed if she had any.
Yes, he testified to that 10 minutes ago, that it had been used so much that they wouldn't be able to find any evidence of her in there anyway.
Communication leading up to anyone, or attempted communication leading up to her alleged disappearance.
Your Honor, at this time, I would like to move to publish People's Exhibit 234 so the jury can see the duct tape from the tank for themselves.
Detective Greer, when you were talking about the second phone where Ms. Warner's data was moved to, when did you say that was purchased?
I don't believe I set a date, ma'am.
Okay.
I know shortly, sometime after her disappearance is when it went into service.
Do you want to look at a report to refresh your memory? It was the fall of 2021.
Sure.
Okay. Is there anyone want to use my copy?
Thank you, ma'am. Page 16, I presume?
Yes, it's got the little sticky note on the side.
Yes, it says here in the fall of 21.
Okay, does that refresh your memory?
Yes, sorry, I was verifying for a separate reason. Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. And then you indicated the police didn't even try to swab that JCB, the front loader, correct? In terms of the Michigan State Police at any point in time.
That's correct.
Now, you indicated that Detective Greca did do a lot of talking in the interviews with Mr. Warner. Mr. Warner didn't just sit there silently, though. He also would talk back, correct?
Can I revisit the last question, ma'am? I want to make sure I'm clear. So my evidence technician, while doing other work on the property, evaluated the JCB and found that it wasn't suitable for that type of evidence collection. I just wanted to be clear. Sorry.
Were you present when that happened?
Yes.
And why was that?
Just based on the length of time since the disappearance, and you could see recent wear and tear and debris within the device itself.
Now, again, going to Detective Greca's interviews, you said he talked a lot during the interviews?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Warner didn't just sit there silently, though. He also talked back, correct?
Yes.
I mean, we've seen a portion of those during the course of the trial. You'd agree?
Yes, ma'am.
And you'd also agree there were probably 30 plus phone conversations and meetings between Detective Greca and Mr. Warner, right?
I would have no way to quantify those, but I know they spoke on the phone.
Pretty regularly?
I'm not sure how often. I know that they talked on the phone for a reason. I'm not sure how to articulate it about how frequently or not.
Sure. So if you could tally up in your head, how many interviews do you think there were?
In person?
Sure.
Between Kevin Greca and Dale Warner?
Yes.
At least 6, if not 10.
So somewhere between 6 and 10. And then do you know how many phone calls?
I couldn't tell you how many phone calls. Probably at least that many, an equivalent amount.
Now, you said that you never asked Mr. Warner for any sort of handwriting comparison where he would write the same sentence over and over again. I guess, or you didn't even try, right? You said he wasn't cooperative, but the reality is you didn't even ask him if he would do it, correct?
That's correct.
Now, you also used the term we when you said blood would likely not be there. Who were you referring to as the we? Was that you and Detective Singleton?
Yes, in response to information we learned from the medical examiner, Dr. Cho.
Now, your interview with Mr. Warner and Mr. Lieb, that was in December of 2022, right before the holidays. Is that accurate?
Yes.
And then Ms. Warner went missing on or about April 25th, 2021, correct?
Yes.
Would you expect every detail of a memory to be the same from April of 2021 to December of 2022?
Every detail, no, but if my wife went missing abruptly,
I'm not asking about what you would do. I'm asking, as a police officer, would you expect when someone is talking about something multiple times in a year at that point and roughly 8 months later, would you expect the narrative to be exactly the same?
The narrative? Yes.
You wouldn't expect any difference in detail?
There would be variation to detail, but the narrative would remain consistent if it was truthful.
Sure. So a consistent narrative, but details would be different. I think that's what
Yes.
you just said, correct? Yeah. And then did Mr. Warner ever tell you, his memory isn't always the greatest?
I wouldn't deny that he's told me that, but I can't think of a particular time that he would have said that to me.
I have no additional questions. Thank you, sir.
I just have two questions. The device that you seized in May of 22 and sent to the lab, is that the device you were indicating the iPod was placed on in the fall of 21? Does that make sense?
The device that I seized in May of 22 was the device that Ms. Shardy refreshed me on from the activation of the fall of 21.
Correct.
Yes.
Do you know?
That's my belief. It's my understanding.
Okay. Do you know if between April 29, 2021 and May 2022, when you seized that phone, if there was another phone in the interim that had that information on it?
Between 4/29/21 and when I seized it?
Correct. Do you know if there was a separate device that had that information on it?
No.
Okay. The conversations between Kevin Greca and the defendant, sometimes did they discuss fishing?
Yes.
Did they discuss hunting?
Yes.
Did they discuss Canada?
Yes.
Talk about camping?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, just a lot of stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay, nothing further.
When you were doing your interview with Mr. Warner and Detective Singleton, was there conversation about or jokes about your wife, what she would allow you to do, what she wouldn't allow you to do?
Are you going to tattle on me?
I am. Hopefully, she's not listening to this.
I'm in trouble. I can promise you.
Right.
But yes, that's accurate. Yes,
You
ma'am.
engaged in that same sort of banter, so to speak, correct?
Yes.
Maybe to a lesser degree than Detective Greca, but still existed, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. No additional questions.
Nothing further.
Test for blood. Okay, we have several questions from jurors. The first is, did you ever do any tests for blood in the house, bucket for JCB, spray barn, or safe?
Some testing was done initially by the FBI in the fall of 21, but by the time we got involved, we did not observe a need to do so.
Okay, the follow-up question, I think you answered, but I'll ask it anyways, is if yes, did any of the tests come back positive for blood?
None of the tests that were done in the fall by the FBI came back positive.
Okay, this I think has already been answered as well, but was the writing on the tag on the tank determined to be in Dale's handwriting?
Yes.
Did you check the black box on the Hummer to see if it was turned on and moved on Sunday morning?
Yes. I can explain if you'd like, Judge.
I will leave that for the attorneys to follow up on if they like to. Were you ever concerned that Kevin Greca may have had more than a professional relationship with Dale Warner, such as a friendship?
No.
What was the device in question used in tracking heart rate, distance traveled, and stairs climbed in reviewing data collected?
Those questions were in reference to Dale Warner's Apple Watch that he wore on his wrist, and a combination of some data collected from your phone in addition to that.
Was the duct tape on Dee's body, along with the duct tape on the outside of the blue tarp she was wrapped in, also black in color?
Yes.
Is it common for an officer to remove his body cam and continue an investigation?
I would have a hard time answering yes or no to that question. There's some variables there.
Why didn't the Google search of liquid cremation flag your attention and only the other Google search about disposing a tank?
That search also piqued our interest, but when we were referring to the disposal of the tank, we were referencing that being very early in the investigation and what kind of supported our welding theory. So the cremation search also was something of noteworthiness to us, but that was not discovered until sometime later. The search itself wasn't discovered on the device until later.
Is there proof that Dale went to Findlay, Ohio on the weekend of Dee missing?
Yes, he went to Findlay, Ohio on 4/24.
Okay, that is all of the questions. Ms. Wise, do you have any follow-up questions that you'd like to ask?
You indicated that you did something with a black box on the Hummer.
Yes.
What black box are you talking about?
The black box is a common term used for the a portion of the computer in the car that police or other investigators may use if the vehicle is involved in a crash or accident. In other words, if in a separate unrelated example, if you were to be in your vehicle and collide with another vehicle, the black box is very likely to contain the rate of impact, if you're wearing your seatbelt, if you apply the brakes, some information like that. Some more advanced models also have some additional data. In this instance, we reviewed the specific Hummer in question with a person from our department that specializes in that type of information extraction, along with other information extraction from vehicles. And unfortunately, we were unable to obtain any data from the specific Hummer based on how old it was.
And I believe that you already answered this question, but I just want to follow up. As far as after you found Dee Warner's body, were you able to locate that safe that was in the spray barn?
The specific safe that I observed on the property, I never found again, which is why I found a similar make and model elsewhere.
The Dale Warner's Apple Watch that we talked about earlier,
Yes, ma'am.
I believe when Ms. Chartier pointed out to the section of the police report where that data was that limited data that you were given by the Lenawee County Sheriff's Department?
Limited, especially in comparison to what we received later on.
Okay, and describe what you mean by limited.
Going back to the type of extraction that was done from his device with that, the metaphor I gave about the B-level license, when we later did it with that A-level license, I was able to get more in-depth data for those hours that she was referencing.
Okay. Did you do anything additional with that data?
Yes, I evaluated the more in-depth data. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you did that independently, not with any assistance from anybody with Apple or the doctor or anything like that?
That's correct.
You indicated that the defendant went to Findlay, Ohio on April 24th, 2021?
Yes.
Okay, and he didn't spend the night in Findlay that night, correct?
No, he went in the afternoon hours with an employee to pick up a truck and returned home, and then goes about his evening chores when he arrives home for a moment and is in passing with his daughter, Lena, as she's leaving. So he's home well before that.
You were asked about body cameras and if it would be common to take off your body camera when you're doing certain things. And you indicated that's not a yes or no. Can you describe what you mean by that?
The use of a body camera is can be very dependent on the circumstance and situations that you're in. So in my current role, I'm executing more high-risk search warrants on a regular basis where there could be there's a more likelihood of violence at the search warrants I'm executing. So you typically are going to keep your vest and your body camera on for a longer period of time. Separate than that, if I'm engaged with someone, a suspect or a witness or a person of interest, I'm going to remain with that body camera on also. That's not to say that there haven't been times where you secure a scene, the risk of harm to you and others has now gone down, everything is safe. It's not uncommon for police to take their vests off, and our policy supports the fact that we would no longer wear our camera. And through that, sometimes a neighbor or another person will wander over and start speaking with you, so those may not be recorded. But the use of the camera, it's very fluid and dependent on the situation. You want it on for every time you're going to have contact with people that might say something that's a point of interest, absolutely. And you should try your best to do that.
Nothing further.
You said that the FBI had, I want to make sure, conducted testing of the home swabs, the Munger property in the fall, correct?
The fall of 21, yes, ma'am.
Fall of 21. Is it your understanding that the Lenawee County Sheriff's Department did that at the end of April in 2021 as well?
I don't know that to be true, no, ma'am.
Did you review any report that indicated that?
I could be wrong, ma'am, but I don't recall any.
Would looking at a report refresh your memory?
Yeah, yes, please.
Again, I'd like to go basis of knowledge. He wasn't there with the Sheriff's Department and he's just reviewing reports. His testimony would be hearsay.
So this does go to the investigation. He's talking about the FBI doing this testing and swabbing in the fall of 2021. The fact that if he knows, if the Lenawee County Sheriff's Department did it in the spring of 2021, it certainly would go to, is there a need to do it again? Because two different agencies have done it.
The objection wasn't relevant. It's
Hearsay. It's hearsay.
She's just asking at this point to see if she can refresh the recollection. So I don't think we're at the point where the objection would be appropriate. It's a foundational objection, not a relevance objection. I don't think there's any issue with trying to refresh the witness's memory, so she can do that.
Which one are you looking at?
Property item entry. This isn't. Ms. Chartier?
Mm-hmm.
This is property item entry. This isn't really indicative of a report.
So I wanted to see if that refreshed your memory and if looking at a lab report on that item would refresh your memory. Would you like to look at the lab report?
It does not refresh my memory, and this is not indicative of the search that you're referring to.
Okay, would the lab report, you think, refresh your memory?
If the lab report is only referencing this, then it's not going to refresh my memory. No, ma'am.
So I just want to make sure, looking at a lab report with swabs from the house would not refresh your memory.
You can show it to me, but if it's referring to this specific thing right here, this is not indicative of a search that you're referring to.
Okay, so if it's not going to refresh your memory, we don't need to go through anything
Okay.
further. So your understanding is the first time the house was swabbed from your memory was in the fall of 2021.
I'm referring to the use of that chemical known as luminol to search for blood and canvassing in an area. Yes, ma'am.
And if anything happened before with the Lenawee County Sheriff's Department, you just don't remember it, or you're not aware of it. Is that accurate?
That's correct. Yep.
Okay, thank you. No additional questions.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. You can step down.
This was the missing day. My day off has now been turned into a wonderful Wednesday stream with all of you degenerates, and I'm happy for that. Now, I kind of know why the defense had such a weak day yesterday, because they had nothing at all. Nothing that helps their defendant in any way try to get out of the trouble he's in. I really don't get. I'm not sure what if anything we learned from this, other than the police did a shitty job. It seemed like the original lead detective might have had a little too cozy of a relationship with the defendant, and he might have closed his eyes to a few things. It's kind of my summation of what I heard, or maybe just didn't find them relevant. I better say that, because the other one could sound almost like I accused him of something. But that talking about fishing trips and going to Canada and stuff like that in a murder investigation seems a little weird. Especially that they had 8, 9, 10 conversations. We didn't see that many conversations with them. So, yeah. Irregardless of Sue's hatred towards me, I did catch up on the best day of the trial, no matter how. But it was a good 4 hours we had. It was interesting, the most parts of it. But it just put into it just finished the picture of why the F these witnesses were brought by the defense yesterday. That was absolutely horrendous what they did, and now we can tell why it happened that way. Kesima, because this is what they do. They railroad men in the system. His movement on his watch, I think, is what they thought was going to get him off. But they didn't really get into that other than up, downstairs. But you can take your watch off. It's really easy to combat that. You can't combat all the other evidence. It was pretty good. It was just telling the full story, Dizzy. So, yeah. When the jury asked the investigator about the relationship between Greco and the defendant, there was really long pause before he said no. Yeah. And remember, he said there was a leak somewhere within law enforcement. Remember, Greco didn't want to testify. Remember, Greco had been out to lunch for 8 months, not responding. He might like a long lunch break. They do that in Michigan. She wanted one of the cartel bosses' house, and they said no, and they did it. That's what happened. Are you going to have a night stream? I have something funny to share. It's not appropriate for your court streams. Depends on when I wake up, because when I woke up this morning, Aiden was still going, and I thought, I'll be in bed. There's no reason. Night streams, because I don't go and do the, hey, let's see what the idiots have said anymore. I have to work a little bit harder to find some content, and that's probably not going to be every night I'm going to stream. When I just responded to what the idiots had done in the last 24 hours, it was way easier to have content. Now I have to figure out how to make videos of kangaroos beating dogs interesting. But I might do a night stream tonight. I don't know yet. Today is grilling pork chops, and that's on Dawn. Why are you grilling pork chops on your husband? That's weird. Are we getting foreskins drama still? Kind of run there. Yesterday they said calling them foreskins is sexually demeaning or something like that. I don't know what's sexual demeaning about my foreskin. I don't know. So, yeah. But I think this is as far as we're going to get today. Tomorrow will be closing arguments, and they'll probably be late, but we're going to start up 9:30, 10 o'clock, somewhere around that part, because they are never on time in this courtroom. I think that's about it. If I get up, I might do a night stream tonight, talk about, not about my foreskin, because that's not important. But what you should do is at 9 o'clock, the wonderful Emily C. will have the less wonderful expert on, and we'll be talking about the timeline in the Karen Reed case and its flexibility, just like Zach in those videos he sends me. And you should go check that one out, because Emily is the only one I have met so far who can kind of get the expert to concentrate. Sue will be in the pool this weekend. She'll be happy again. Yeah, no more angry Sue. That's going to be nice. So, yeah, well, get a watch. Really easy to buy. Hope you're having a show tonight. Tons of stupid crap we can talk about. Don't worry, I got your back, handsome sir. Well, I'm not going to talk about all the... To be honest, I'm growing tired of all the drama in Massachusetts, and that's why I know a lot of people will come in and talk about people from Massachusetts, and I don't know. It's just everyone else are talking about them. Let's talk about stupid things instead. Let's talk about probably talk about boobies or something like that. I like to talk about that. My favorite bird. The pool has never stopped me from giving you crap. See? Sue is constantly harassing me. She's on at 3 my time. Yeah, she has the expert on at 9 Eastern, which will be 3 a.m. my time, so I won't be watching, because no one thinks about us. I always acquiescent to Sue, who said, you're only allowed to stream on Eastern Standard Time. And I do that to make Sue happy. Does it help? No, she'll still hate me. But no one else thinks about Danish time. But tonight we will probably have a stream if I can get out of bed in time, because we're ending early at 7 o'clock. I'll probably be in bed before 10, so I will probably do a stream tonight. If you join, find something that's not 5150 JFK related, and we can talk about that. Because everyone else is talking about the other stuff, so let's do something else. So that's what we're going to do. All y'all, thank you so much for watching, and remember, Emily C. at 9 p.m. Eastern.
Oh my gosh, you guys!